Okay, see if you can hear me now on the live stream there, Max. You should be able to hear me.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much for letting me know. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over here, and thank you guys on the live stream for letting me know that the audio wasn't working. I'm going to switch over and introduce you to the course so that you understand what this course is all about and what you're going to be learning over the next 5 days. Because as I mentioned, it can be very rewarding to have relationships in life. And unless you have the wisdom to understand how to do that, you might be struggling in some of your relationships. You might be noticing that it's challenging for you. But through learning the wisdom of the Buddha, you can make decisions. It's your results. If you're here, I'll teach you and I'll help you to learn. And if for some reason some impermanence happens and you're not able to make it, okay, that's fine. I'll see you another time. Up to you. But after class, you may need to contact me. You're going to need help, because there's one thing learning in a class like this, but it's another thing when you're faced with a certain struggle or difficulty in your life. It's one thing to talk about being polite, kind, friendly, and respectful with your mom or your dad or your brothers and sisters and your boss and your coworkers. It's a whole nother thing when you start interacting with them and you're struggling and you're having difficulties. So we can sit here in the classroom and talk for 5 days, which is wonderful, and I can teach you and you'll gain a certain amount of wisdom. But when you're out there in the world and you're interacting with these people, and then when you are struggling and having difficulties, you might need to reach out and ask for help. And you can do that through any of these methods. And you can even schedule personal guidance. There's ways for you to schedule, and we can meet in Zoom one-on-one, where we can do a video call, and then that way you can get help through Zoom as well. So you can use this contact information to contact me at any time that you like. So the way that we typically start our courses is we have this welcome and introduction here at the beginning of the course. And then as we start each morning, we have this chanting and meditation at 9 a.m. You'll see that we have chanting sheets over there on the table. You're welcome to chant along. There's other courses and retreats where I teach you how to do the chanting. This isn't that particular course, but you're welcome to get the chanting sheets. You'll see the English translations there as well. And we chant and go into meditation. I'll guide you in meditation. And then we'll come out of the meditation with chanting as well. And then around 9:30, as I switch over to start sharing teachings with you that are going to help you understand the teachings of the Buddha and how to develop these harmonious relationships. Then, as I mentioned, we kind of take a mid-morning break somewhere, typically around 10:30 or 11, somewhere around there. And then we have lunch somewhere around 12. It's not a hard, fast thing, but sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later. It just depends what's going on. And we'll typically take an hour and a half lunch, but each time that's a little bit different. I will let you know when we break for lunch, when we're going to come back. Sometimes we break for an hour and a half. Sometimes it can be a little bit shorter. Even sometimes it's a little bit longer. So you're welcome to go out and get some food. You're welcome to go do whatever it is you need to do. If you need to go to immigration or anything like this, or if you even would like to come back here and meditate or take a nap, you might even see me laying out some mats and taking a little rest and getting some sleep during lunch. So feel free to come back here and rest and relax as well. And then at 1:30, when we get back together or thereabouts, we will be having some teachings. And I will typically be doing meditation with you in the afternoon and teaching you some type of meditation. During this particular course, we focus on loving kindness meditation, because you need that in order to develop harmonious relationships. And then as we do meditation and I share any kind of teachings with you in the afternoon, then we usually finish right around 3. Again, sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later. But if we go to 3:10 or 3:15, I'm usually surprised. But there have been some rare occasions where there's been some interesting conversations and students are interested and keep asking questions. But at any point that you need to leave, feel free to get up and leave. No matter what time it is, you're not being rude, you're not being disrespectful. If you have other things that you need to do, feel free to go do those. If there's people here that are asking questions and interested to know things, I will just keep teaching. But I usually aim to finish right around 3 o'clock is usually how I kind of structure things. The course itself, there's this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, which is a foundational text that is used in all the foundational programs and courses that I teach. And I teach in this particular course, chapters 4, 5, 8, 11, 13, 14, and 15. But there's a lot of content in this course that I haven't written about. The only place that I teach it is in this particular course, because when it comes to relationships, it's oftentimes challenging to write books about this, because there's not just one standard set way of the way things are going to happen in any particular relationship. There's so many different variables that it's sometimes challenging to write about these things. So while I will be teaching these particular chapters, there's a whole lot of other content that I haven't written about that you're going to be learning in this course that is the only place that I actually teach. You can get this book by downloading it from our website, buddhadailywisdom.com. If you go there, you can get it for free. You can take that and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here at the temple by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order them on Amazon if your country has access to Amazon. They even have Kindle versions and all these other things. It's the first book of a 13-book series. There's some students that have told me that they've read this book about 8 to 12 times, and each time they read it, they glean more and more information out of it as a way to help them develop their life practice. So this is a vital and important and essential tool to help you to develop your life practice on your journey to enlightenment. So I would highly encourage you to acquire a version of that book. These are the topics that I'm going to be discussing and sharing with you as part of this course. This morning, we're going to be focused on the Eightfold Path, because as I mentioned, some of you guys have learned that, some of you guys haven't. I'm going to be using the original words of the Buddha to walk you through understanding this. This is a foundational teaching that you're going to need to know, and you're going to need to learn it more than one time in order to really bring it into your life and practice it. Without understanding the Eightfold Path, you would have no ability to get to a point where you have harmonious relationships. You definitely wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without the Eightfold Path, but you also wouldn't be able to develop harmonious relationships. This gives you the foundation and the structure and the framework to be able to understand anything and everything that the Buddha taught. It all plugs into this particular teaching. So we're going to walk through that this morning. Then in the afternoon, I'm going to teach you transforming the three poisons, craving, anger, and ignorance. This is where you're going to understand the high-level issues that are in the unenlightened mind, because this is what's hindering you from being able to have harmonious relationships. You're going to need to know these three poisons, because as you experience symptoms from these that you experience in your day-to-day life, you're going to need to know the remedies and how to fix it and how to eradicate these from the mind. So I'm going to teach you these things. Then I'm going to teach you how to identify your cravings, cultivating non-craving and analysis of the mind. This is going to be tomorrow morning. In addition to teaching you loving kindness meditation, I'm going to be teaching you this as well, where in the foundational classes, we teach you that craving, desire, attachment is the problem or the cause of the problem, and that you need to eliminate these cravings, desires, attachments. But how would you be able to eliminate them if you couldn't identify them, if you didn't know what they were? So I'm going to show you how to look inward and be introspective and reflective, and how to uncover what are your cravings, desires, attachments, because this is what's causing the mind to be discontent. And if you can figure out what they are, and then you can almost surgically go in and eliminate them. There's certain general training that you need from the Eightfold Path to generally train your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, which you guys are going to learn this morning. But then there's ways to kind of surgically go in and almost remove them surgically from the mind. And I'm going to teach you how to do that when we get to this particular teaching. Because as long as you have craving, desire, attachment in your relationships, you'll struggle. This is why you can get along with your friends pretty well, but when it comes to maybe your parents or your brothers and sisters, you have a lot harder time because you have craving, desire, attachment in those relationships. So you struggle more with the relationships that you're closest to. So your parents, your life partner, your children, these are more challenging relationships for you. Where the people that aren't so close to you, you don't have as much struggles in those relationships because you're not attached, or you don't have as much attachment in those relationships. So in order to get to harmonious relationships, you're going to need to identify your attachments in these relationships so you can eliminate them and then get liberated and feel freedom and be at ease in these relationships. Then I'm going to teach you what's referred to as the Brahma Viharas. This is the way that a lot of people refer to them. I refer to them as cultivating healthy mental states. This is loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. These are 4 healthy mental states that are going to promote harmonious relationships in your life. That as you train your mind with these particular mental states, they're antidotes or solutions to specific difficulties that you experience in the mind. So when you learn about what these 4 healthy mental states are and you cultivate them in your mind more and more, it will help you eradicate or antidote certain aspects of your mind. It's almost like a prescription that you'll see certain symptoms that your mind experiences, and then these are the prescription that's going to antidote that and eradicate it from the mind. Then on Wednesday morning, we're going to focus on true love, love without attachment. This is the real focal point of this course, where you're going to learn about what true love is. Oftentimes we think we know what love is, and oftentimes people think that love hurts and love is painful, but it's not love that's causing your painful feelings. If you've been in a relationship with somebody and that relationship ended and you experienced painful feelings, it wasn't the love that was causing that. And I'm going to help you to be able to see that on Wednesday morning so I can teach you what true love is, because as long as you don't know what true love is, you won't be practicing true love. And as long as you're not practicing true love isn't going to be coming back to you. So in order for you to be able to get to harmonious relationships, you're going to need to know what true love is. You're going to need to practice it. And then as you're practicing true love, more and more people will be practicing true love with you. And then when people are practicing true love with you, you'll be able to identify it as true love. Right now, you might have difficulties with that. So I'm going to teach you about this on Wednesday morning. Then we'll be learning practicing in a world of the unknowing, relationships with non-practitioners. What this is if you have relationships with people who aren't practicing these teachings, how do you manage that? How do you practice in those situations where you know that your mom and dad are causing their own anger, but they don't understand that? Or maybe your life partner or your children, you know that you're not causing them to be angry, but they blame you and they're thinking that you're the one who's causing them to be angry. Or maybe you're being polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, and others are being bitter and hostile and harsh. How do you deal with those situations? I'm going to teach you about that. Then I'm going to teach you sharing the path to enlightenment, how to guide children along the path. So if you have children or you have nieces or nephews, or even if you have friends or family members, this is actually going to help you. Even if you never plan to ever have kids in your life, this will actually help you when you're around people who aren't practicing the teachings. This particular class is going to teach you how to kind of selectively help people and kind of sprinkle the teachings into their life in a way that they can understand them. Your goal isn't to go out and teach other people, but there's going to be situations where you see somebody really struggling with a particular issue and you know that you have some wisdom that you can help them with. There's ways to actually skillfully help people. And I'm going to teach you how to do that, specifically with children, but you could actually relate this to life partners or your parents or other people as well. Then I'm going to teach you practicing non-attachment, how to eliminate attachment to those who are closest to us. This is vital in terms of developing your harmonious relationships, because it's attachment in your relationships that is producing the hostility and the bitterness and the anger. As long as you have attachment in your relationships, they won't be harmonious, that you won't be at ease. So by you learning how to eliminate attachment to your parents and your siblings and your life partner and your children, this is what's going to promote the harmonious relationships. And eliminating attachment doesn't mean you eliminate the relationship. It means that you eliminate inside your mind the craving and desire of wanting them to be a certain way. And I'm going to teach you how to do that when we get to that particular class. Developing and maintaining relationships, choosing wholesome friends and a life partner. The Buddha talks about this as one of the most crucial things in your journey to enlightenment, is to develop friendships that are wholesome. But you're going to need to know how to do that without judging other people, because it's helpful to have people around you who are into wholesome things. But if you're judging people and you're looking down on them, this would be your arrogance and your conceit, and it's going to harm your own mind. So you would like to learn how to make wise decisions about who to include in your life without actually judging them. Because if you make unwise decisions about who to involve in your life, this can influence you in an unwholesome way. So you're interested in learning how to make wise decisions about who to involve in your life, and doing that without any kind of judgment or conceit. Then the path to enlightenment, practicing the path in the workplace. So if you work or if you go to a business environment, you can be practicing the teachings of the Buddha. I'm going to share with you how to be able to do that. But some of these people in your work environment may not actually be practicing the teachings. So I'm going to share with you how to practice from a work environment, how to train your mind and continue to train your mind while you're at work. Because if you have this practice that you're doing at home, well, when you go to work for 8 hours or 10 hours a day, Monday through Friday for 5 days a week, that's 40 hours perhaps. If you didn't understand how to practice these teachings during that time, there's going to be this big hole in your practice. And you're going to need to know how to practice these teachings during your day-to-day life, even when you're at work too. And this will highly benefit you in the way that you interact in the work environment. And you'll see lots of progress and improvement in your relationships at work, and even your professional development in your career can continue to grow if you're practicing these teachings. Other people don't need to know that you're practicing these teachings in order for you to be able to glean the benefits and results of practicing in the workplace. Then I'm going to teach you what's called the art of the friendly no. How to say no without saying no. One of the challenges in your relationships is if you're around people who are not practicing these teachings, when you're interacting with them, if they don't get what they want, they will push you aside. This is their aversion. They experience certain cravings, desires, attachments. They want things to be a certain way. And if they get what they want, they get pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. You get those too in the unenlightened state. But then when you don't get what you want, you get these painful feelings of sadness, anger, frustration, agitation, and all these others. And typically what the unenlightened mind will do is it'll falsely believe that the painful feelings that they're experiencing is something external. So when you experience those painful feelings, a person will oftentimes push the person or the situation away, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. So when you're in relationships, and if you say no, like for example, if someone invites you to a party and you say, no, I can't come, they can experience painful feelings because they really want you to come. And they don't understand that they're causing their own painful feelings. They're attributing their painful feelings to you. And they may push you aside as part of that. And you could end relationships. Not you, but they. You could have broken relationships because they're misunderstanding the problem. So if you went around saying, no, I can't do that, or no, the unenlightened mind doesn't like this word no. So I'm going to teach you how to say no to people without actually saying no. So you'll see how I do that as we get to that point in the course. Then these are the meditations that we're going to be learning as part of the course. I've already taught breathing mindfulness meditation, but this afternoon we're going to do it. I've taught it in other courses and other programs, but we're going to do it together. And any questions that you guys have on breathing mindfulness meditation, I will help you with that. We're going to use that to then ease into loving kindness meditation. This is what I'm going to focus on teaching you primarily in this course. I'll be doing breathing mindfulness meditation with you in this course, but I won't actually be teaching it the way I do in the other courses, but we'll be doing it together. And then I'll be teaching you the loving kindness meditation, because this is going to antidote your anger, your hatred, your ill will, your frustration, your agitation, any negative self-talk that you have in your mind. This is what's going to antidote that out of the mind. So you're going to need this in order to create harmonious relationships. And then you can do meditation in the seated, lying, standing, or walking positions. The loving kindness meditation we don't typically do in the walking position, but you can do breathing mindfulness meditation in the walking position if you like. And then we're going to be doing chanting as we ease into meditation and we ease out of meditation. And then towards the end of the course, I will share with you continued support and how to continue to gain support along the journey to enlightenment after this course, so that you can know, how do I get help? What do I do from this point forward? Okay, it's been great learning with you for 5 days, but what do I do to continue my growth and continue my learning? So any questions on the course or how things are structured? Okay, let me just check here. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions here. Okay, so let's go into our first topic, which takes me a good 2.5 hours to really teach the Eightfold Path. So we're going to take a break at certain points, but I'm going to walk you through this very thoroughly using the original words of the Buddha, because you need this as a foundational teaching in order to develop harmonious relationships. Without this teaching, you wouldn't have any opportunity to either get to enlightenment and or create harmonious relationships in your life. I'm just going to walk through it very slowly. Feel free to ask questions as we go. I'll be pausing at different times. I refer to this as the path for all humans to enlightenment, because this is the path. When we talk about developing a life practice, it's the Eightfold Path that is your life practice. You can think about the Eightfold Path as these 8 individual dials, whereas if you had a speaker system, you were trying to dial this sound in with these 8 dials and try to tweak these dials to get a better and better quality sound out of your speakers. It's the same thing with your life. In terms of getting a better and better quality mind, or a better and quality life, or better quality relationships, you're going to need to dial these 8 dials in closer and closer and closer. So if you understand what these 8 dials are, you can tweak them and you can experience improved results in your life. As you're experiencing the implementation of these teachings into your life, you'll experience improved results in your relationships. So I'm going to walk you through this because you're going to need to know it inside and out, backwards and forwards. And as I mentioned, for some of you, this is going to be a refresher. And for others, this is the first time that you've ever learned this. And everything else that I have to teach you in the course is built upon you understanding this particular teaching. It's a core central teaching of the Buddha. So I'm going to start you off with learning right view and right intention, which is the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. Then we're going to move into learning about right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is the moral conduct section. When you're learning moral conduct in the teachings of the Buddha, what he's exposing you to is the natural law of karma. He's showing you this cause and effect, or action and result. Whereas if you make wise decisions about your moral conduct, you'll experience wholesome results coming back to you. But when you make unwise decisions about how you interact in the world through your speech, actions, and livelihood, then you'll experience unwholesome results coming back to you. So he's not giving you rules or commandments. He's not telling you what you should or shouldn't do in your life. He's exposing you to the natural law of karma, and that you can see this clearly for yourself. And then with that wisdom, you'll make wise decisions that produce wholesome results, and you can see the truth for yourself. Then you're going to need this mental discipline. In order to implement the moral conduct, in order to get to harmonious relationships, you're going to need to be able to control your mind. So when your mind's hostile or bitter or resentful towards others, this is because you don't have discipline of your mind. You don't have control of the mind. So I'm going to teach you about how to develop this mental discipline, or this control of the mind. So I'll walk you through all of this over the course of this morning. So first, right view. This is the foundation to understand everything that the Buddha taught. Whenever new students would start learning with the Buddha, he would start them with right view as the very first teaching. And that's what I do too when brand new students are interested to get started with me, is to start understanding right view. So these are the words of the Buddha. He says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So here what he's doing is he's pointing to another teaching. It's called the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is right view. In the Four Noble Truths, you understand the problem in the unenlightened mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. So I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths. But here, underneath of this line, what I've done is I've put the top section of the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is much longer than this, but this particular slide, I could only put the top section. And the reason why I did that is to help you build confidence that what the Buddha is describing as right view in the Eightfold Path, that is the Four Noble Truths, because you can see the top section of the Four Noble Truths, how it directly connects to the Eightfold Path, because the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that the other teachings of the Buddha plug into. So he's not going to teach the Eightfold Path in its entirety and say again the Four Noble Truths, because the Four Noble Truths is a separate teaching. So it's just plugging in here. So now I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths so you can see what that is, so that you can establish right view. Establishing right view is to have a breakthrough to finally understanding the problem in the unenlightened mind, and the cause of that problem, and the way to eliminate it, and the path forward. So you can have this breakthrough to finally understanding what's causing your anger, your sadness, your frustration, your agitation, your annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, the shyness, resentment, jealousy. you wouldn't be able to eliminate these discontent feelings if you didn't know what was causing them. So it's in the Four Noble Truths that you can have this breakthrough and finally understand once and for all what's causing these feelings so that you can eliminate them. Because in the unenlightened state, we will typically blame somebody else for our feelings. We'll think mom or dad is causing us to be angry, or brothers and sisters, or your boss, or something like that. But it's not true. Other people aren't causing you to be angry. So I'm going to be able to teach you how to learn these teachings, how to reflect on them to independently verify them, and how to practice them. When you're learning with me, you shouldn't believe any of these teachings. Belief isn't going to help you get to wisdom, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it so that your mind can waver very easily. What you need to do in order to get to enlightenment is you need to cultivate wisdom. You need to be able to see the truth. So as I teach you here in a moment, and all throughout any other time that you learn with me, don't ever believe anything that I say. You learn, investigate, examine what I'm sharing with you, reflect on that to independently verify it and practice it. And this is how you get to wisdom. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And then this way you can awaken to enlightenment. So here, the three universal truths are a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. So I'm going to walk you through learning, reflecting, and practicing so that you can independently verify what's causing your mind to be discontent, where you don't believe what I'm sharing, but you can see it for yourself. But in order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you're going to need to first be able to understand the three universal truths. So the first universal truth is called the universal truth of impermanence. What the Buddha is doing is he's teaching you the way the world is. He's not teaching you the way the world should be, and that if everybody follows rules and commandments, then the world will become a better place. He's going to teach you how the world is. And when you understand how the world is, this is where you'll be able to awaken to the wisdom of these natural laws that are around you. So this first universal truth, he's explaining to you the way the world is. He talks about conditioned objects, that there's these conditional objects that they arise, they change, and they fade away. This is impermanence, that they're not permanent. Okay, so that there's these conditioned objects that arise, they change, and they fade away. They are impermanent, meaning not permanent, right? So all the things around you that you see, that you hear, that you smell, that you taste, that comes in contact with the body, things that you experience in the mind, they're all impermanent. They arise, they change, and they fade away. They're constantly changing. There are things called unconditioned objects. An unconditioned object, it doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away. It's permanent. Okay? An unconditioned object would be like enlightenment. Enlightenment itself. The mind is unconditioned. So by the time you get to enlightenment, it's a permanent mental state. The natural laws of existence that the Buddha taught during his lifetime, they are permanent, meaning those natural laws, they didn't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. So this is why his teachings that he shared 2,500 years ago are just as applicable today as they were 2,500 years ago. Now, people's memory of these teachings and the books that people write about these teachings, those are all impermanent. People have misunderstood, perhaps, right? But in terms of the natural laws themselves, they haven't changed because they don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. They're unconditioned. But everything else around you, it's all impermanent. These are conditioned objects. So they arise, they change, and they fade away. Okay, so this is a little bit of the learning of the universal truth of impermanence. But now you don't believe me. You don't believe what I say. You don't believe what I write in books. You don't believe what anybody else says. You have to verify for yourself to be able to see the truth. So you take a teaching like this and you start looking around the world and see if it's true. Because what I'm sharing with you is everything you see, hear, smell, taste, that comes in contact with your physical body and things that go through your mind is all impermanent. And this is true everywhere around the world. So you should be able to now reflect on that to be able to see if it's true or if it's false. So what I encourage you to do is start with something that you're familiar with, which is this human body. You're very familiar with this human body. And you ask yourself, is this body permanent or is it impermanent? If this body is permanent, that means it's been exactly the same your whole life and it's never changed. If this body is impermanent, that means it's constantly changing. So what would you say? Is this body permanent or is it impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. We started out as a small little baby and we kept growing and growing and growing. We got teeth, then our teeth fell out and new teeth came in. That's impermanence, right? Things are constantly changing. Our hair started growing and then we cut it and it grows some more and we cut it. That's constant change. Our hair starts out as a certain color and then maybe the color changes. Maybe it turns to gray. Maybe we start losing our hair. Maybe we get a little extra fat. Maybe we get a pimple or a mole. Maybe our skin complexion changes over time. These are all changes. This is impermanence. The physical body is impermanent. Okay? What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? Is the weather always the same or is it constantly changing? What'd you say? It's constantly changing, right? The weather is impermanent. What about your relationships? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? Are all your relationships exactly the same? You have exactly the same people in your life from beginning to now? Or if people have been coming and going out of your life? So if people have been coming and going out of your life, your relationships are impermanent. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? Okay. Well, what about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or is it impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It goes up and down and up and down. Some of us go up, 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 up. Others go down, 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 right? It's impermanent, right? So we could go on and on and on and on and talk about all the different things. And if that's what you need to do, do it. Walk around the world. Look around the world and see if you can find something permanent. Walk down the sidewalk. You see that crack in the sidewalk? That's impermanence. When you see this height of the sidewalk going up and down here in Thailand, that's impermanence, right? When you see the color and the texture and the shape of the sidewalk changing, that's impermanence. When you look at the wall of the temple and you see holes and you see marks, that's all impermanence, right? Everything around you is constantly changing. You have a certain sound in the temple now, but then eventually there's a car or a motorbike that goes by, or maybe a ambulance or a police officer. You might hear a siren go by. The sounds are impermanent. You're not going to have a permanent certain sound here at the temple. You're going to have different sounds, different temperatures, different people. Whoever's here now today might not be here tomorrow, or there might be more people who come at a certain time, right? There's going to be constant change in your life. This is what the Buddha is describing to you, is the universal truth of impermanence. There's constant change. So this is a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. Then there's the universal truth of discontentedness. This is explaining the unenlightened mind to you and explaining to you what the unenlightened mind experiences. Some people refer to this as suffering, but I don't use that word here. I use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, because it more accurately represents what the Buddha was describing. But you'll hear a lot of people refer to this as suffering. But let me explain to you what this universal truth is, and then I'll circle back and explain to you why I don't use the word suffering. What the Buddha explains here in this universal truth is he explains that the unenlightened mind experiences conditional feelings. What a conditional feeling is that you base your inner feeling on some condition, and you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. Pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. Painful feelings are things like anger and sadness, frustration, agitation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful for the mind to experience. Then you have neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example of this. That it's not painful, it's not pleasant. Or like if somebody you didn't know came and sat really close to you on public transportation and your body was touching their body, you might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant. Maybe you're uncomfortable in that situation. The mind's dissatisfied, right? This is what the mind's experiencing in that situation. It's neither painful nor pleasant. So these are the three feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences: pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. And these are what's called conditional feelings, that it's based on some condition. So for example, if you wake up in the morning and you see it's sunny outside, based on the condition that it's sunny, you might be happy, right? Or maybe you look at your bank account and you see your balance in your bank account, and now you're happy based on the condition that your bank account balance is a certain balance. So you're experiencing pleasant feelings as a conditional feeling, that this happiness that arises, it changes and it fades away. It's impermanent. And the reason why is because it's a conditional feeling. It's based on some condition. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the mind is basing its inner feelings on some condition. As soon as you allow your mind to experience a conditional feeling, then it's not permanent. That happiness is going to arise, change, and fade away. So therefore, it's ultimately dissatisfying. So if you get happy when your bank account balance is this, well, then when your bank account balance is this, you'll be sad, or you'll be frustrated, or you'll be agitated, or you'll be annoyed, or some other discontent feeling, right? So the painful feelings are what comes next. And this is what the unenlightened mind is doing, is it's going up and down and up and down and up and down. The mind's experiencing these constant struggles with periods of peacefulness here and there, but essentially it's only a matter of time before the mind becomes agitated or annoyed or frustrated about something. So this is explaining what the unenlightened mind experiences. Well, you know that your mind is unenlightened, so you can reflect on this and you can independently verify whether it's true. Just like you did with the universal truth of impermanence, you can do the same thing with the universal truth of discontentedness. That if the Buddha is describing the unenlightened mind, and you know your mind is unenlightened, you should be able to look at these three feelings and determine if this is describing what you experience. Do you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant? Are there any feelings that you experience that don't fit into one of these three categories? You can ask yourself this. And what you might come back with is, yeah, this actually accurately represents what it is that you're experiencing. But if you can't see that, ask me questions and I will help you to be able to see it. So some people refer to this as suffering. They say that the Buddha taught suffering. But I don't use this word because, in my opinion, the suffering, it describes the painful feelings really well. When you're angry or sad or frustrated or feeling guilt or shame or fear or stress or anxiety, you might say that you're suffering. But when you're happy or excited, would you say you're suffering? Probably not, right? Or if that person you don't know came and sat next to you on the bus and your body was touching their body, would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? Your mind's having displeasure, or maybe you're dissatisfied, but you're not suffering, right? That's a pretty strong word. So if we use the word suffering, it explains the painful feelings really well. But that's only 1/3 of what the Buddha taught, which means you're missing 66% of what it is that the Buddha taught on this particular topic. And this is such an important topic to understand. If you didn't understand this and you were missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, you wouldn't be able to get to the ultimate goal. So by using the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, you'll more accurately understand the full range of emotions and feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences and what the Buddha was teaching here. In the original teachings of the Buddha, he uses the word dukkha. You might hear this if you're around other people who are practicing Buddhist teachings. The word dukkha is being translated by a lot of people as suffering, but I translate it as discontent, discontented, and discontentedness. And there's a lot of other people who think of it that way too. So I would encourage you to use that language whenever you see somebody talking about suffering related to the teachings of the Buddha. Just in your mind, do a little switch: discontentedness, or discontented, or discontent. Okay? Then there's this third universal truth, which isn't really that important to understand for the Four Noble Truths, but it is important in order for you to get to enlightenment. So I'm going to teach it to you here, and then we can talk about it, and you can let me know what questions you have. So here, this third universal truth is called the universal truth of non-self. This is actually a solution to one of the primary problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. There's these 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered. They're referred to as the 10 fetters. The fetters are the pollutions or the defilements or the taints that are in the mind. We refer to them as fetters because during ancient times, they would put a fetter around your ankle to keep you trapped and confined to a certain area. There was a shackle and a chain and a ball that would keep you trapped in a certain area. And this is what they would do with prisoners. Nowadays, we put people in jail cells. But during ancient times, they would put a fetter on your leg. You were fettered, and this is how you would be trapped in a particular area. So there's these 10 fetters that keep the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. And the very first fetter is called personal existence view. The universal truth of non-self is the solution to that, and it will help you to eradicate this particular pollution. But it's going to take you time to understand what the pollution is and what the solution is, and then how to actually implement it in your day-to-day life. What personal existence view is, I'll explain to you the pollution first, and then I'll circle back and explain to you the solution. What personal existence view is this is where the mind clings to this body, or it clings to the mind itself, thinking that this is who you are as a person. So there's a certain self-image that the mind's clinging to, or a certain self-identity that the mind's holding on to, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And now you'll experience discontentedness in situations where you're having certain agreeable or disagreeable contact related to your self-image or your self-identity. So for example, if somebody compliments you and says, "Wow, you're so beautiful. That shirt really brings out the colors of your eyes," or "Oh, that hairstyle that you have looks so much better on you. You look so amazing," or anything like this. If they start complimenting this physical body, you might get these pleasant feelings based on the condition that somebody's complimenting this physical body. And with the mind clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are, you'll get conditional pleasant feelings. But then, because of impermanence, it's only a matter of time before somebody says something negative or degrading or disparaging about this physical body. And now, when they say something negative and degrading or disparaging, you'll experience painful feelings like sadness, anger, and frustration, because the mind is confused. It has a misunderstanding. It has a misperception. It thinks that this body is you. So when somebody says something about the body, you'll get either pleasant feelings or painful feelings. Or here's some other examples. Say you're in a social situation and you spill some chocolate ice cream or some pizza or something like this, spaghetti sauce on your clothing. You might feel embarrassed because you're not being perceived in the world in the way that you want to be perceived. Or say you look in the mirror and you see a mole or a pimple or a wrinkle or maybe a gray hair, or you get a little bit of fat here and there, right? You might be shaken up by that because you're not being perceived in the world the way that you want to be perceived. This mind is thinking that this body is you, and it's clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And now, when you experience certain disagreeable experiences that are disagreeable to you related to the body, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. Okay? Then the same thing is happening with the mind. There's a certain self-identity that the mind is clinging to, thinking that this is who you are. It might be your culture, your ethnicity. It could be your sexual orientation. It could be your nationality, your job or occupation, or any number of different things that the mind clings to and it holds on to, thinking that this is who you are. And now, once again, if you have agreeable contact, you get pleasant feelings. But if you have disagreeable contact, you'll get painful feelings. So if somebody says, "All Japanese people are lovely and kind and wonderful," or "All French people are so friendly and warm and loving," or "All Italian people are so friendly and warm or loving," or "All Americans or all Canadians or all Chinese people are so friendly and loving and kind," you might get pleasant feelings because you identify with "I am Chinese," or "I am Italian," or "I am French," or "I am Japanese," and now they're talking about me, right? But then it's only a matter of time before you hear somebody say something degrading and disparaging, because not everyone in the world is polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. That's not the world we live in. We live in an impermanent world where some people are polite and some people are not, right? And this is the way people function. You can't control what other people say and what other people do. You can only control your own mind. So if your mind's clinging to the self-identity that "I am Chinese," or "I am American," or "I am Canadian," when you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody's saying something degrading and disparaging, or you turn on the news and somebody's saying something degrading and disparaging about the nationality that your mind is clinging to, you'll get frustrated, you'll get agitated or annoyed. right? So there's certain identity that you might be clinging to based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. You can even cling to the idea of, I am a kind person. I am kind. And now when somebody says, you're the angriest person I've ever met, you're so rude, whoa, it's going to shock you. You're going to be like, whoa, your mind's going to be all shaken up by that, right? Because you identify with, I am kind. And now when somebody's saying something opposite of that, you'll get frustrated. You'll get agitated because you don't identify with anything other than I am kind, right? So as long as your mind's clinging to any particular identity, even things like a job or occupation, you'll get frustrated. Maybe you think, I am a doctor, I am a lawyer, I am a food server, I am a taxi driver, I am a construction worker. If you cling to this, when you're in that job, you'll feel great, you'll feel wonderful. But then when you lose your job or you quit or you retire or you get injured and you can't do that job anymore, you'll struggle. Because when you were in that job as a police officer, you felt really great because I am a police officer and my identity is intact because I'm wearing my uniform, I got my badge, I got all my equipment, I am a police officer. But now when you get injured and you're not able to do that job anymore and you're doing something else, you'll feel lost, you'll feel miserable. Right? You might have experienced this in a particular job or occupation that you might have done for a particular period of time and you adopted it as your identity. Or if you've been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend or a husband or wife, and you identify with, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife. And now when the relationship's over, you're single, but you don't identify that way. So now you struggle and you want to hurry up and get right back into another relationship so you can assume that identity again. You can take on that identity because you don't feel comfortable in that role of I am single because your mind doesn't identify that way. So you might have found that you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship because the mind was holding on to this identity, thinking that this is who you are, and you don't identify that way. Some people even come to Thailand feeling like they need to find themselves. Some people come here, they say, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to find my true self. And they go on this journey to Thailand or other places in the world to find themselves. But they never actually find themselves. Because what the Buddha is saying in the universal truth of non-self is that there is no self. They might find a new job, might find new hobbies, new activities, they might find new friends when they come to Thailand. But none of these things are you. It's not who you are. Even the past decisions that you've made in your life, that's not who you are as a person. Those are just decisions that you've made. But as long as the mind has this personal existence view, this pollution, you'll cling to these things, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And now you'll struggle and you'll have difficulties at different times in your life. So you can get to the point where you realize non-self, where you realize that this body isn't you and this mind isn't you. And you can eradicate personal existence view. So the universal truth of non-self is helping you to be able to see that this body isn't you, this mind isn't you. There is a body, there is a mind. It's come together for this existence, but none of this is you. It's not who you are as a person. But the challenge is that we've all been taught our entire life that this is who we are, that this body is us, or that we are Canadian, or we are American, or we are Chinese, or we are Korean, or that we are French. This is who I am as a person. We've got flags for our countries. We've got national anthems. We've got all kinds of things that have been imprinted in our mind to try to convince us that this is who we are, and we need to adopt this identity, right? So sometimes people have difficulties understanding personal existence view and the universal truth of non-self because the mind has been conditioned for so many years to think this is who we are. In fact, even from the time of birth, we were given a label. I am David. That's the label I was given, David, when I was born, right? And I adopted this label. And now we have a certain image, certain personality, a certain characteristic that we adopt as who we are. I am David, right? So we've been from birth conditioned to believe that this body or this mind is who we are. And the Buddha is teaching you that, yeah, you can let this go. Don't cling to this. Don't hold on to this because it's only going to cause you discontent feelings. So this is a little bit on the universal truth of non-self. And you can independently verify this. As I mentioned, don't believe what I'm sharing with you here, right? Don't believe anything that I say. So here's the way that you independently verify that there is no self. Think about yourself when you were a child, teenager, early adulthood, and then now as where you are in life right now. Think about your character, your personality. Has it been exactly the same? Have you viewed yourself in exactly the same way? Or has it been constantly changing over time? What would you say? It's been changing, right? You can see there's no permanent self because you haven't looked at yourself in the same way. Here's another way. If your arm was amputated and you only had one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? You're saying no? What do you guys say? Are you less of a person if you only have one hand and one arm? You say no? The rest of you? No? 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 You're not less of a person, right? You have less use of a hand and arm, but you're not less of a person. So intellectually, you understand that this body isn't you. Because if I ask you that question, if your arm's amputated, are you less of a person? Well, if this body is you, you would say, yes, I'm less of a person. But intellectually, you understand this body isn't you. But this is where the mind's confused. It has the misunderstanding. When somebody says something negative about this body, you get angry, you get frustrated, you get agitated, you get annoyed because the mind's confused. It has a misunderstanding or a misperception. That's the pollution of personal existence view. And then here's a third way you can independently verify it. As I usually shared it with students, I ask, point to yourself. Where are you? And oftentimes students will point and they'll say, I'm right here, or they'll point here. So I ask them, well, what are you pointing to? A shirt. You're pointing to a shirt. Is that shirt you? Is that who you are as a person? Is that shirt, are those clothes you? Is that who you are? No? Okay, so if I took off my shirt and I held that up, is that David? Is that who David is? That shirt? No? Okay, so let's throw away the shirt. That's not David. Let's go on this journey to try to find my true self. So where's David? Someone might point. Okay, what are we pointing to? Skin. We're pointing to skin. Is that skin you? That skin you have? You say no. Is that skin you? Is that who you are? The skin that you have there, is that you? Yeah, this one's a bit challenging for people to understand. But ask yourself, just keep it really simple. Is this skin you? Is that who you are? What's your name? Is that who you are? This skin? You don't know. Okay, that's fair. That's fair, yeah. So I would say that this skin is not you. That's not who you are. It's just skin. It's not you, right? So if we held up the skin and I pointed to it, I say, is that David? Is that who I am, the skin? Some people will say no. So, okay, we throw away the skin. Well, what do we have left? We have bones, we have muscle tissue, we have organs, we have fluid. None of that stuff is me. It's not who I am as a person, right? So I get a little extra fat here and there. That's not who I am, right? This is just physical structures of the body, right? But if your mind identifies with this is who you are, you will struggle. You'll have difficulties. I remember the first time I was skinny my whole life, and it was like in my late 20s and early 30s, I started getting a little bit of fat here and there. I remember driving down the street in my 4x4 Jeep, and I hit a bump, and I felt that first little jiggle. I was like, whoa, what was that? I'd never experienced that before because I was always thin. I didn't even know what that was because I'd never experienced that in my life. I felt a little jiggle of fat. I was like, whoa, what was that? It took me a few moments to figure out what it was. And I was like, whoa, that's fat. Oh my goodness. Right? I was kind of shaken up by that because I thought that this body was me. And hold on a second, what is that? Right? So this is the challenge in the unenlightened mind, that if you cling to this body, you'll think that this is who you are, and you'll be shaken up when things start changing. If you want this body to be a certain way permanently, this body is impermanent. So what the Buddha is teaching you as the universal truth of non-self is not to cling to this body, wanting it to be permanent, thinking that this is who you are. Don't cling to certain things in the mind, your identity. Don't cling to that and think that that's who you are, because these things are constantly changing. If you cling to a job or occupation and you think that's who you are, well, when you're not doing that job or occupation anymore, you'll struggle. Or if you cling to, I am a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend, when you're not in a relationship, you'll struggle, right? Because your identity is not intact. So the universal truth of non-self isn't saying that you don't exist. It's not saying that there isn't a person here. There's surely a person here. What it's teaching you is to not cling to this body and don't cling to the mind, thinking that this is who you are. Don't cling to the self-identity. Don't cling to any self-image and think that this is who you are. Don't cling to your decisions and the things that you've decided. Things that you've done in the past that were unwise, that doesn't define who you are. If you did unwise things in the past, okay. That was part of the learning process and you gain more wisdom as a result. But now leave it in the past. Do something different now. Make wiser decisions in the future. But don't identify with who you are based on the decisions that you made in the past. That would be unwise and it would only produce unwholesome results in your life, namely discontentedness. So any questions on the three universal truths, either the universal truth of impermanence, the universal truth of discontentedness, or the universal truth of non-self? Remember, for those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. I don't see any questions, but I'm going to take a little drink to help me talk. Okay. Oh, you have a question? Yes, ma'am. If you could get the microphone. And you guys can keep these microphones with you because there's plenty of them. And you might need it again, or someone around you might need it, so you can share it.
Hi. Good morning. So you talk about identity. So like I am someone's wife and you are someone's husband. So nowadays a lot of people divorce. Then after that, after that, if like to someone who divorced and the ex-wife or ex-husband like to talk to the ex-husband or ex-wife, but already they the ex-husband supposed to married with the other lady. So and then I wonder, so the let's say the kind of condition. Okay, I like to talk kind of many times to ex-husband, and then but the ex-husband already has someone else as a wife. So do you think it's kind of normal or good stuff, or I have to consider about the situation? Already he has a new wife. So sometimes, so just you mentioned about the identify. So I identify I am a kind of ex-wife, or just I am his friend, or I'm not sure. So. And then so also I'm not sure. So this kind of talking, so it's makes sense or useful or not. But so people now, so a lot of people divorced, and then the family member is kind of depends. So I don't want to insist something kind of common or stereotypes, identity, but I wonder what is the kind of a good relationship. So ex-husband, ex-wife, and a new family member or new wife, new husband. So they all together should be kind of getting along well, or like maybe in Japan usually, so each other, ex-husband, ex-wife, and if one of them has already have a new family or new wife or new husband. So usually they kind of have some distance, should have a distance. But,
okay. So as it relates to personal existence view and the universal truth of non-self, all of that I am, like I am an ex-wife, I am a friend, I am this, that's what needs to be eradicated from the mind, where you understand that, yes, this is the person that I used to be married to, but I don't need to identify with I am an ex-wife or I am an ex-husband or I am a friend. You don't need to identify that way. You can understand that's your role in this person's life, that, okay, I'm their friend, but you don't need to identify that way because that's just the mind clinging and holding on. In terms of what you should do in this relationship, let's talk about that in a later class as part of this course, because I can help you understand how to handle a situation like that. But I'd like to stay focused on the three universal truths, the Four Noble Truths. But in terms of personal existence view, just let go of any of the identity of I am a ex-wife or any of that kind of stuff, because that's only going to hinder you from being able to experience peace and joy.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Yes, ma'am. She would like the microphone. I think it's already on.
That's okay. Yep.
Yep.
I don't know, but I can't make my head around this no non-self.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how come all the situation that I lived before, or like the decision that I've made in my life, they kind of build me. That's what I think, but it's maybe wrong. But that they build the person that I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So I just can't get it. That's this one point.
That's normal.
What do we do then? I mean,
yeah.
how?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
Yeah, like it's just like, how do we not identify ourselves as we've always done that, or like we always thought like, oh yeah, if like this happened to me, or like I made that decision instead of that one, or like this happened that helped me grow up, and it's hard for me to like understand that.
Yeah, this is a challenging one for people when they're first starting, and oftentimes people need to talk about it multiple times before they understand it. The universal truth of impermanence, the universal truth of discontentedness, okay, makes sense. This one is a bit challenging. So the things that you've experienced in life and various decisions that you've made, of course, that's helped you to cultivate wisdom, to get to the point where your mind has certain wisdom based on those experiences. But none of that is you. It's not who you are as a person, right? So like, let's just say you had amnesia and you forgot all of that wisdom for one reason or another. You're not less of a person because you don't have that wisdom anymore. It's just that there's been a situation with the body that you can't remember those things that happened in the past anymore. So the problem that the mind is experiencing because of what's called personal existence view is the mind is clinging to this body and the mind, thinking that this is who you are. And now when you cling to this body, you see a pimple, you see a mole, you see a wrinkle, you feel that little fat, you see the gray hair, you start losing your hair, you feel less of a person, right? You feel shaken up by this. So as long as the mind's clinging to this body, you'll be shaken up when you see things that are disagreeable to you, right? Or if there's a certain identity in the mind, like I am a police officer, and now 10 years you're a police officer, but then you get injured and you can't work that job anymore, and now you feel like less of a person. So what I'm explaining to you in the personal existence view is this is the pollution that the mind is experiencing, that it's clinging to the body and it's clinging to the mind. And as long as you're doing that, you will experience a certain amount of discontentedness related to that. So what the universal truth of non-self is explaining to you is to train your mind to let this go, is to let go of thinking this body or this mind is you. How to actually let go is something that you learn later. It's not something that I'm teaching you now. Right now, I'm just teaching you that there is no self, that this body isn't you, this mind isn't you. But in terms of the tools and the techniques and the ways that the Buddha teaches you to let go of thinking that this body is you or that this mind is you, it's something that I discuss in other classes, other courses, other retreats. It's in the first book in chapter 16. You can see all the things that I share about how to eliminate the mind thinking that this is you and this is who you are. And it's going to take you multiple times to revisit that, to understand it. And that's okay. You're not going to get everything on the first day. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. All right, so now let's go into one more little building block, and then I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths. This one more little building block is understanding the definition of craving, desire, attachment, wants, expectations, holding, grasping, clinging. This is defined and described in these teachings in a unique way, and you're going to need to understand what this is. This is where the mind has a mental longing and strong eagerness. It's yearning. It's chasing after the objects of its affection. It's pulling towards something. The mind is thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. If I can just get that new girlfriend, that's what I need. Everything will be perfect in my life. If I can just get that new boyfriend, oh, I just need that new boyfriend so badly. Everything will be perfect if I can just get that new boyfriend. Oh, that new car, that's what I need, a new car. Oh, more money, that's what I need, more money. Oh, jewelry, that's what I need jewelry. Or, oh, I want a bigger house, or a new pair of shoes, or something else. This is the mind's longing, yearning, the chasing. The thinking something external is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases after it and chases after it. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you're like, oh, yes, brand new pair of shoes. I want that. I want that. I want that. Oh, yes, 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 yes. That's the craving, desire, attachment. Not the shoes themselves. It's not the object. It's not the shoes. It's inside the mind. It's the craving, the desire, the longing, the yearning. It's a certain attribute of the mind in the unenlightened state, where the mind thinks that something external is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So it chases after it and chases after it and chases after it. Okay, so this is craving, desire, attachment. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you experienced this? I saw you shaking your head as I was describing it, right? Shoes, jewelry, boyfriend, girlfriend, right? The mind's chasing, you know what I'm talking about? Your mind pulling towards something, thinking the next new shiny object is going to provide lasting satisfaction, right? You're making a certain amount of money and the mind's happy for a period of time, but then it wants more, right? And then you chase it and chase it and chase it and chase it and chase it. And then you get that money and then it's like, you feel good for a while, but then you want more. Right? And then you chase it and chase it and chase it and chase it. This is the craving, desire, attachment in the mind. Okay? So now I'll teach you guys the Four Noble Truths. This is where you're going to learn the problem in the unenlightened mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination, and the path forward. This is where you can have a breakthrough. You'll finally understand why your mind's experiencing these discontent feelings, so that then you can solve it. The first noble truth is explaining the problem, that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. Those conditional pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. This is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. It's going up and down, up and down, up and down. It's only a matter of time that you get what you want, you feel happy, and you don't get what you want, you feel sad, right? The mind's going up and down and up and down. This is the problem in the unenlightened mind, that the mind's shaken up, that you can't be peaceful permanently. You can't be joyful. You can't have fun permanently because the mind's going up and down and up and down. Okay, that's the problem. The second noble truth is explaining the cause of that problem. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. Okay, so I'm going to say that a few times and I'm going to give you some examples. The discontent feelings, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, is being caused by craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. The mind wants things to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent, right? So if the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy, excited, it gets pleasant feelings. But if you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings like anger and sadness and frustration. Here's some examples. When you first got together with your boyfriend or girlfriend, if you've experienced a relationship like that, when you first got together, you were so happy. You were so excited. It felt so great. Somebody's showing me affection. Somebody's calling me. Somebody's checking in on me. We're going out on dates together. We're going to the movies. We're going to dinner. We're having great conversations. We're going to the park. We're spending time together, just getting to know each other. You might be having intimate contact at different times. Wow, so much pleasure, right? But now as the relationship goes on, your expectations grow. Their expectations grow. You want more and you want more. They want more. They want more. And now you guys start getting angry and discontent and frustrated with each other. And the relationship's over and it breaks up. And now you're angry and now you're frustrated. So your mind went from the pleasant feelings when you were getting what you want, which is new boyfriend, new girlfriend, lots of love, lots of affection. Then your mind moves to the painful feelings, where it's sad or angry or frustrated because your mind is craving for this relationship to be permanent, when in reality, this relationship is impermanent. It was always impermanent. Your mind just didn't understand the universal truth of impermanence. It was lacking wisdom. It didn't understand these universal truths. It didn't understand the natural laws. It thought this relationship was permanent. So the mind was holding on. It was clinging. It was craving permanence. And then when you experienced that impermanence, where the relationship was over, you struggled. The same thing happened when grandma and grandpa died, or mom or dad, or brothers or sisters, or your friends or family. When they died, your mind was sad and you grieved. As long as they're alive, you got what you wanted. You were happy. But then when they died, you were sad. You were frustrated because the mind was clinging. It was holding on. It wasn't the love that was causing you to be sad and grieve during the funeral or when you found out that they died. What was causing your mind to be sad is that your mind was craving permanence. Your mind was wanting grandma and grandpa to be permanent, but they can't. Because they were born, they had to die. We all die for the same reason. Because we were born. That's why we die. Because we're born. As long as there's birth, there's going to be death. It's impermanence. It's going to happen, right? But when your mind's craving permanence, wanting mom and dad to be permanent, or brothers and sisters or friends or family members or grandma, grandpa, if you're craving permanence, not understanding impermanence, when somebody dies, your mind is holding on, wanting them to be permanent, and now you will grieve and now you will be sad. The same thing happens at weddings. If you've ever been to a wedding and you see people crying or upset, or if you were crying at a wedding, this is because brother or sister is going off into the world with somebody else, and you're like, no, they're supposed to be with me. You're craving, you're holding on, you're wanting this permanence. So when you go to this ceremony and you see them going off into the world with someone else, you might grieve or you might be sad. Or if your parents ever dropped you off at college, in university, and you were crying and you were upset, or they were crying and they were upset, this is because their mind's holding on. It's just like a kindergarten kid or a preschool kid being dropped off at school for the first time when they're 3 years old. Right? 4 years old. They're crying. They're all upset because they thought mom and dad were permanent. And here they go off into the world. And they have to go off into the world by themselves, go to school. And they're all upset. We all probably did that, right? We all experienced that because we were holding on to our parents, wanting this to be permanent, but yet it was impermanent. So the discontentedness that we experience, it's being caused by our own mind. We're craving, we're longing, we're yearning, we're wanting this relationship to be permanent. Here's another example for you. Say you get a brand new car, and when you get that brand new car, you feel really great. You feel all these pleasant feelings because it's a brand new car. But now you take it and you park it at a store and you go inside and you come out and you see a scratch on your car. You might be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. If you're angry, if you're upset, if you're frustrated, it's not the scratch that's causing that. And the person who scratched your car, it's not them who's causing you to be angry or frustrated. It's inside your own mind. It's your craving. You're wanting this car to be beautiful permanently. It's not possible for this car to be permanently beautiful because it's impermanent. The car is going to get a scratch. It'd be wonderful if nobody ever scratched our car, but that's not the world we live in. We live in an impermanent world. Not only is the car going to get scratched, but the paint's going to fade. The upholstery in the car, it's going to get ripped. It's going to get torn. The tires are going to need to be changed. The window washers are going to need to be changed because this car is impermanent. But as long as your mind's craving permanence, you will be frustrated. You'll be angry. You'll be annoyed. This is the cause. The second noble truth is explaining to you the cause of the problem. The problem is discontentedness. The cause of that problem is craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the wanting things to be permanent. This is the cause of the problem. Okay? So now you don't believe me, right? Don't believe me. Start reflecting on this. Start looking at this and see, is this the truth? Because you can take a certain experience that you've had where you've recently been angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling, even pleasant feelings. And you can see that it's your own mind that's causing it. It's craving, desire, attachment. Take a recent situation where you've been angry. Now, at that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else, because that's usually what the Enlightened mind does, is it will blame other people. And as long as you do that, you're not going to have harmonious relationships. So look at that situation now with these fresh eyes, with this new wisdom. What was it that the mind wanted that it didn't get? There was something the mind wanted. And if you would have got it, you would have got happy. But because you didn't get it, you got those painful feelings of the anger, the sadness, or frustration. And you should be able to directly reflect on this and be able to see for yourself that this is the truth, that your mind is causing these discontent feelings. You've probably been in arguments before, adamantly trying to convince somebody that they are causing you to be angry and that they needed to change in order for you to feel better. But this is the craving, desire, attachment. This is the lack of wisdom, that the mind in the unenlightened state, it misunderstands the problem. And because of this, when you're experiencing anger or other painful feelings, you will typically push people away, or you will push the situation away. That's typically what the mind does, is that you feel painful feelings, you think it's this person that's causing that, so you will push them away. And you've done that potentially at different times in your life. But you can see it didn't solve the problem because you just get irritated or annoyed about something else. If that was the true cause of the problem, when you push them away, you wouldn't get angry or sad or frustrated any longer. But you still get angry or sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed because you haven't actually understood the real cause of this problem. It's not that person. So pushing people away or pushing a situation away is not going to solve the problem. The other thing that the mind will do when it misunderstands the cause of the problem is it'll be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people. You've probably done this before. Through your speech and your actions, you've been bitter and harsh and hostile towards people. And now those people might choose to leave out of your life because of your anger and your hostility, right? And this doesn't work. It doesn't solve the problem, right? Because the mind in the unenlightened state thinks if I can fear this person into doing things my way, then I'll feel better. This is like an animal, right? An animal's like, roar. It shows its teeth, it growls, and it tries to convince that other lion to do what I want. This is what the unenlightened mind does in the human state, is that you'll growl and you'll roar at people. You'll show your teeth, right? But that doesn't work either because people end up leaving out of your life. Or the third thing you'll do when you misunderstand what the cause of the problem is you'll put your expectations on people and you'll try to control them and get them to do things your way. And when you're controlling them and trying to do that, they'll feel pressured and they might leave out of your life. So you can't get to harmonious relationships if you don't understand what the problem is and what the cause of that problem is. So here, the second noble truth is explaining to you the cause of the problem is craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection, thinking something outside is going to provide lasting satisfaction. But nothing outside of you can do that, because these are all impermanent objects. And as soon as you base your inner feelings on something impermanent, that means your feeling of happiness is impermanent too. It's only a matter of time before your mind moves to anger, sadness, or frustration. And sometimes these are so far away from each other, you don't even notice it. So if you were chasing after a new job and you really wanted this new job, and you chased it and 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 chased it. Maybe you do many different things, and you finally get this new job, and you're so happy and you're so excited for this new job. And maybe you work at that job for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, loving every moment of it. Oh, it's so great working at this new job. But then maybe the company goes out of business, or you get laid off, right? Or you get fired. Now you're angry because based on the condition that you have this job, you'll be happy. But now when you don't have this job anymore, 5 years later, you get fired, you'll get angry. And you don't realize that it's because of your craving from 5 years before, that when you were craving to have that job and you formed your inner feelings based on having this job, and you got happy based on the condition of having this job, when that condition changes, because it is not permanent, you will experience the anger, the sadness, or frustration, or some other discontent feeling as a result. So the second noble truth is explaining the cause of the problem is craving, desire, attachment. The third noble truth is explaining the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. There are certain tools and techniques that the Buddha shares to help you eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And he shares that in the fourth noble truth. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the complete, perfect plan that's going to teach you how to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. There are certain tools and techniques like breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity, that is generalized training that helps you reduce your craving, desires, attachments, but it's the Eightfold Path that is going in and teaching you exactly how to do that, exactly how to eliminate your cravings, your desires, your attachments. So that's why I'm going to teach you this Eightfold Path, so you can understand how to eliminate these cravings. Because as long as you have attachments in your relationships, you're not going to be able to have harmonious relationships. You're going to need to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, so that you can have harmonious relationships with everybody around you. Okay? So any questions on the Four Noble Truths? Essentially what I'm teaching you here as part of right view is your mind is causing your own discontent feelings. It's not anything external. It's not your parents. It's not your boss. It's not your life partner. It's not your children. That's not what's causing you to be angry or frustrated or irritated. What right view is accepting responsibility for your own feelings. What wrong view is to blame other people for the feelings that you experience. That would be wrong view. Anytime you think somebody else or some situation is causing you to be irritated or annoyed or frustrated or some other discontent feelings, that's wrong view. So in order to progress on this path, you need to establish right view, where you can see clearly through your own direct reflection and your own learning that your mind is causing its own discontent feelings. This is so crucial to be able to understand. And this is very empowering, because as long as it's other people who are causing you to be angry, you might try to convince other people to do things your way. And that's very exhausting, because there's 8 billion people in the world, and you can't train 8 billion people to do things your way. So if you can let that go and you can see the truth that it's your mind that's causing your own discontent feelings, you only have to train one mind. That's it. Your workload just went from 8 billion people to 1. Wow, that's like pretty peaceful. That's pretty joyful right there just by itself, right? That's pretty liberating, pretty free, right? So right view is to maintain the view that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, the craving, the desire, the attachment. And this is where you can directly reflect and see the truth for yourself, that is the truth. So now I'm going to teach you right intention. Right intention, it'll be really easy for me to teach it to you. It's very straightforward. Right view with the Four Noble Truths takes a lot more time, but with right intention, it's 3 aspects. There's the intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, and the intention of harmlessness. Some people translate this as right thinking or right thought, because this is all about how your mind is thinking in your thoughts, your intention that you would like to develop. You would like to develop the intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, and the intention of harmlessness. What the intention of renunciation is that you intend to let go. That you're intending, you're thinking, your thoughts are, I need to let go. Because that's what's causing your mind to be angry, is that you're holding on. You're getting frustrated because you're holding on. You need to be willing to let go. That's what renunciation is. That you're willing to let go of your unwholesomeness and the mind's false beliefs. Because there's certain things that you believe right now that aren't actually true. And what I would encourage you to do is not to believe anything. So the teachings of the Buddha, it's not about getting rid of your false beliefs and bringing in new beliefs. That's not what it's about. Because the teachings of the Buddha, there's no belief whatsoever. So you're not believing anything. What you're doing is you're getting rid of your misperceptions, your false opinions. One of the very first misperceptions you need to get rid of is the misperception that other people are causing you to be angry. As long as you hold on to that and you don't practice the intention of renunciation, you won't be able to get to peace and joy, because the mind's holding on to the belief that other people are causing you to be angry. So you need to practice the intention of renunciation where you're willing to let go and you're not holding on to the false belief that other people are causing you to be angry. Then you need to practice the intention of non-ill will. What ill will is like the animosity, the bitterness, the hostility, the aggression. You need to be willing to let that go, and you need to have the intention of goodwill. That's what non-ill will is. It's goodwill, because it's a double negative. So what goodwill is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill, loving kindness, where you have the intention of practicing goodwill towards all beings. You're going to need that in your mind in order to develop the rest of the path. And then the third aspect of this is the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. You would like to have the intention or the thinking or the thought where you're practicing harmlessness, because any harm that you put out, this harm is going to come back to you. So you're going to need to have the intention or the thinking or the thought of harmlessness, where you're not interested in causing harm to others. And this is forming right intention. And you're going to need to be practicing this regularly. So you could think about the intention of renunciation as having an open mind. That you're willing to understand that if you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're irritated, if you're annoyed, if you're having disappointment, if you're having any of these discontent feelings, there's certain things in your mind that are untrue. There's certain beliefs that you're holding on to that are untrue. And you're going to need to be willing to let those go. Because as long as you hold on to those false opinions and those misperceptions, you won't be able to get to the peace and the joy of the enlightened mind. Right? And then you need the intention of non-ill will, where you have goodwill towards all beings. And you have the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Okay, so this forms right intention. So just as a summary, right view is the Four Noble Truths, accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Understanding that anything you experience is being caused by your own mind. Any kind of feelings that you experience, it's coming from within your own mind. It's not something external. You're going to need to directly reflect on this and be able to see the truth for yourself, so you can have this breakthrough to finally understanding the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination, and the path forward. The problem is discontentedness. The cause is craving, desire, attachment. The elimination is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And the path forward is the Eightfold Path. That's the complete, perfect solution. So you can establish right view, where now and long into the future, anytime you get angry or frustrated or irritated, look inward. Look inward and try to figure out, what are my cravings? What am I wanting here? I'm wanting something. That's the reason why you're angry and you're frustrated, right? What the mind will tend to do when it has wrong view is look externally. Oh, it's their fault. It's their fault that I'm experiencing this, right? It's not, right? Don't think about it as fault or blame. Just think about it as a cause or condition. There's a certain cause or condition that's leading to your anger and frustration. The causing condition is craving, desire, attachment. That's the cause. Then right intention is practicing the intention of renunciation, where the mind's willing to let go, not holding on to its unwholesomeness, and the intention of non-ill will or loving kindness, and the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm. So this forms the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path, right view, and right intention. This is the foundation that now you'll build all the other factors on top of that. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions. Is there anything you guys would like to ask here or online? Remember, online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little break and give you guys a chance to stretch your legs, get a chance to meet each other, spend some time talking, getting to know each other. And then when we come back from break, I'm going to continue with the Eightfold Path and going from there. So let's take a 20-minute break, which will take us basically up to 11 o'clock. So enjoy your break. Feel free to do whatever you'd like, and then come back at 11 and we'll take it from there. Okay, so thank you guys, and we'll see you guys a little bit after break. Okay, Sawadee Krap. Sawadee Krap. Okay, I'm going to start back up again by going into the moral conduct section and then the mental discipline section, helping you guys to understand the Eightfold Path, this core central teaching. But remember, everything else that I'm going to teach you is based on this foundation of right view, of understanding that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings. Because oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we have certain bitter and harsh speech or actions, and we feel justified in our anger. We feel that it's justified. But when you understand that your mind's causing your own discontent feelings, there's nothing beneficial in being harsh and hostile and bitter towards others. It's not going to improve your relationships and help you to develop harmony. So developing an understanding of right view is so crucial to be able to now help you build on this moral conduct. So I'm going to teach you all these other steps. When you're learning moral conduct in the teachings of the Buddha, it's important to understand that he's not giving you rules or commandments. He's not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. That's not how the Buddha teaches. He's helping you to understand the natural laws. He's helping you to understand this cause and effect or action and result. We refer to it as Kama, or some people use the word karma. You might have heard this word. The word karma is from Sanskrit language, where the word Kama is from the Pali language. If this translated to just one English word, I would just use that English word because it would be much easier for everyone to understand, but it doesn't, so I still need to use this word Kama. What Kama is cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. And when you make decisions wisely, it's going to produce wholesome results in your life. But when you make decisions unwisely, it's going to produce unwholesome results. And what the Buddha is doing is he's already tapped into these natural laws and he understands them very well, and he's helping you to be able to see them for yourself so that with that wisdom, you'll make wiser and wiser decisions. So when he talks about right speech, he's explaining to you the natural law of Kama around speech. He's explaining to you how to not cause harm through your speech, because as long as you cause harm through your speech, this harm is going to come back to you. In your actions, in your livelihood, the same thing. If you cause harm through your bodily actions or through your livelihood, this harm is going to come back to you. And it would be very challenging for you to get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if you're experiencing all this hostility and bitterness coming back to you in your life. So by you understanding this wisdom and practicing right speech, right action, and right livelihood, you're functioning in a way that's harmless, and therefore people won't cause harm to you because you're not causing harm to them. Because the unenlightened mind, an unenlightened being, when they experience harm, they're going to want to harm you back, right? If an enlightened being experiences someone being bitter and hostile and harsh, they're not going to be bitter and hostile and harsh back, right? But as an unenlightened being, and you're surrounded by tons of unenlightened beings, if you treat them in a way that harms them, they're going to want to harm you back, right? And this is going to cause difficulties. If you're trying to get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life, you've got all this harm coming back to you. It'd be very challenging for you to experience peace and joy. So I'm going to teach you using the words of the Buddha. Here, this is right speech. But remember, during the lifetime of the Buddha, he was explaining it as right speech because that's all that existed. You might think about this as right communication, that all your communication, whether it's text messages, whether it's chat, whether it's social media, emails, or anything, should be using these particular teachings. And that's where you're going to see the best results. So here he says, in what monks is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. So here he's helping you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. He's helping you to understand how to do that. Because when you're lying, there's a craving in there that's underlying that. That typically we lie because we want something. And if we tell the truth, we're not going to get what we want, right? So we will tend to lie. So by telling the truth, then you can help you to eliminate your craving. Also, slander or gossip. This is like diminishing other people, like degrading them, knocking them down, kind of destroying people's reputation. If you're doing this, this is coming from a craving. Typically, the mind is wanting to look good yourself, and you think that if I push this person down, then I will look better because I'm gossiping and slandering that person. You're diminishing that person and you're making yourself look better, but it's actually just the opposite, right? It's kind of like the mind thinks that if I put out that person's candle, then my candle will burn brighter. But it's not going to be true. That if you have two candles in the room, then the room's going to be brighter. You can't make the room brighter by putting out somebody else's candle. So if you slander people, if you damage their reputation, they're going to want to hurt you, right? So this is why you see like investigative reporters that get murdered or get killed, right? They've been investigating something, they report it in the news, they've slandered somebody. And I'm not saying this is the way the world should be. This is the way the world is, right? That when people feel injured, they're going to want to injure you. So this is why if you slander or gossip, you can have significant issues. At the very least, people are going to gossip and slander about you at a very minimum, right? So if you're gossiping and slandering with your friends and your family, when your back's turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you too, because they're used to doing that. You kind of gotten them used to doing that and hearing these kinds of things. So they're going to be doing those same things. So if you're interested in people not gossiping and slandering about you, you're going to need to eliminate your gossip and your slander. Then harsh speech is about your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. That if you choose to speak harshly and aggressively with others, they're going to speak to you that way too. This is your speech coming back to you, that when you put out harm, harm's going to come back to you. So if you learn to speak gentle, then people around you will speak that way with you, right? Like your kids, your life partner, your friends, your family, people like this. And then frivolous speech, this is like idle chatter. This is just like yada, 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 unpurposeful, unbeneficial speech. All of these things are coming from craving, desire, attachment, even that harsh speech, right? There's some anger in there. There's some hostility, the mind wanting something. So it speaks harshly. The same thing with frivolous speech, that idle chatter of just yada, 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 yada. It's like broadcasting, right? You're not really speaking beneficially or purposefully. You're just broadcasting. And people are going to tune you out when you do that. And you're not going to be able to be influential in your relationships. So you would like to get to a point where you're able to be influential and helpful in your relationships. So if you just have idle chatter or frivolous speech, you're not going to be able to be beneficial and purposeful in your speech, and people will tune you out. So this is the layer of right speech that the Buddha is teaching in the Eightfold Path. But remember, this is a core central teaching, the Eightfold Path, and other teachings plug into it. So the 5 factors of well-spoken speech plugs into the Eightfold Path as part of right speech, which gives you a deeper understanding of right speech and how to communicate in ways that would be wise. But if you're working on eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech, you might just stay there for a while. But I encourage you to really look at the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, because this gives you a much more detailed teaching that's going to help you to really purify your speech and get to a point where you're not causing harm through your interactions of speech. What the Buddha is teaching you here is to speak at the right time. What you say is true, is gentle, is beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Speaking at the right time has 3 aspects to it. One is that you don't interrupt people. Right? You don't like it when people interrupt you, and other people aren't going to like it when you interrupt them. So if you're looking to develop harmonious relationships, you're going to need to learn to wait and listen to what people are saying. And then when they're done, then you talk. And of course, every once in a while, you might overtalk somebody without realizing it, and you just apologize. And then you wait for them to finish. And then when they're finished, you talk, right? But if you have a craving, if you're longing, yearning to talk, you won't be able to do that. You'll be able to jump right in there. Sometimes you might be listening in order to respond rather than just listening to listen. Sometimes the mind does that. As you're listening, you're just waiting to respond. You're waiting, you're craving, you're longing, you're yearning. You just can't wait to say the next thing. That's the craving. So you're going to need to learn to wait your turn when you speak and speak at the proper time. Then the other aspect of proper time is making sure your mind is ready to talk. Make sure it's prepared, because if you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're agitated or annoyed, this isn't the proper time to talk. The only thing that's going to come out is your anger, your hostility, your bitterness. And this isn't the proper time to communicate with people through spoken words or even email or text or chat or anything else. You need to make sure it's the proper time. And that means your mind is peaceful and calm. Then the third aspect of speaking at the proper time is make sure the other person's mind is the right time to talk for them. Because if their mind is shaken up, or if they're angry, if they're hostile, if they're bitter, if they just got home from work, it's not the proper time to jump in there and start talking about something right away. You like them to come in, take off their shoes, put down their bag, get some food, get some water. 30 minutes into it, an hour into it, hey, Is this a good time to talk? I have something important to share. And if they say yes, yeah, this is a good time to talk. Okay, go ahead and talk. But sometimes they're going to say no. It was a really hectic day. And if you don't have craving, you can restrain your mind, right? But if you have craving, you're going to want to jump in there and talk right away. So you're going to need to restrain your mind and speak at the proper time. Then speaking the truth, this is covered in the first one, where you're not telling a deliberate lie, but also speaking the truth is making sure you're not propagating false truths like conspiracy theories and things like this, that you've independently verified what it is that you're sharing, that you preserve the truth. And if you don't know something, just say, I don't know, right? Sometimes the ego's in there, not being interested in you just saying, I don't know. You can sometimes say, I don't know. Or you can say, in my opinion, this is what I think. Or based on my experience, here's what I know, right? Whereas if you just come right out and talk as if it's the truth, you could actually be misrepresenting something. So you would like to be sure that you're representing the truth. And where you don't know the truth, just say, I don't know. Then the third one is speaking gentle. This is the same thing, the tone, the tempo, the word choice. You would like to make sure that you pay attention to that. If you're learning the Thai language, since you guys are in Thai, you might know that the Thais have all kinds of words to be able to help you, to be able to ensure you're speaking gently, right? They use the word kap or na kap or ka, or we have all these different ways to ensure we're being loving and kind and gentle and warm in our language. Well, in the English language or whatever your native language is, you probably don't have that kind of thing. But you can use other words. Like at one time we used to say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, or thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm so sorry. I apologize, right? We can say things like this in order to, impart this gentleness and this calmness, Mr., Mrs., things like this. This shows politeness, kindness, friendliness, and respect in our communication. So you're going to need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. And this is what's going to help you to communicate in a gentle way. And you're not going to be able to get it 100% perfect when you first start, particularly in the relationships where you have a craving, desire, attachment. With your parents, with your brothers and sisters, you probably have a hard time speaking gentle. But if you can get used to more and more speaking this way amongst your friends and people that you don't have attachment to, then you'll find it easier and easier to have communication with your family members and people who you do have attachment to, until you eliminate your attachments. As you eliminate your attachments to those people, it'll be easy for you to speak gentle all the time. But in the meantime, where you notice that your mind is not being gentle, you're going to need to apologize and then aim to do better and work to do better. Then, speaking beneficially. This is purposeful speech. This isn't about the topic necessarily. Sometimes people think there's like this approved list of topics that you need to be able to speak about. What beneficial speech means is purposeful speech, that you're clear, that you're concise, that people understand what it is that you're sharing, that is beneficial to people. Whereas if like you were sitting in a group of people and you were just talking about yourself, that's not beneficial to others necessarily, right? Unless they've asked you a question. They're like, where are you from? What are you doing? Where do you work? They're asking you questions. So yeah, it's beneficial. But if you were to just go on a yada, 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 yada talking spree and just talking about yourself, this is unbeneficial, right? So you would like to be sure you're speaking purposefully and beneficially. And then speaking with a mind of loving kindness. This is like that active goodwill, the genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. The opposite of loving kindness is inner hate. So you would not like to talk with that. So these 5 factors of well-spoken speech, it's a teaching where the Buddha is teaching you the natural law of karma, but you don't believe it, right? You need to learn, and then you need to reflect, independently verify, and then you need to practice. So right here, you can reflect. Look at a recent conversation that didn't go well in your life. Maybe it ended in a way that you would have otherwise it not ended in that way. Look at these 5 factors. There was something you were missing, or something that the other person was missing. You weren't practicing the 5 factors. Either you weren't speaking very timely, you weren't speaking the truth, you weren't speaking gently, you weren't speaking beneficially, or you weren't speaking with a mind of loving kindness. And that conversation, erupted or ended in an unwholesome way. Even if you just miss one of these factors, the conversation has the potential to end in an unwholesome way. So you're going to need to dial this in closer and closer. So in situations where you haven't experienced wholesome results in your conversations, you can trace it back to 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe 5 of these that you weren't practicing. But even if you miss just one, there's the potential for the conversation to end in an unwholesome way. But then you can also look at the other side of this to independently verify it, is look at situations where you have had wholesome results in your conversations. There might be certain conversations that you're having that went really, really well, but you didn't know these 5 factors, but you were practicing them. You didn't know that you were practicing them, but you were. And you can look at those conversations, like maybe you've had conversations with me and you were speaking at the right time, you were speaking true, gentle, beneficial, with a mind, loving kindness, or you're speaking with each other at your break and you guys didn't have any arguments or frustration because you guys were practicing these. So you didn't know you were practicing them, but you were, because they're the natural laws of existence. But now when you're consciously aware of these natural laws in this particular teaching, you can actively practice it and dial it in closer and closer and closer in your life. You may even need to put these on your phone, take a picture of it. I have it on the posters over there and I have it here. You might just download that poster and you can remind yourself of this in the morning. Like before you go out to work, look at the 5 factors, refresh your memory, and then go out into work and start practicing them. And then maybe at lunchtime or in the evening, you check in and you see how you've been doing. And over a period of time, you dial this in closer and closer. Or wherever you have a conversation that doesn't go well, look at these and figure out which one or more of these did you not practice. And now dial that in, because you're not going to be able to learn this and snap your fingers and be perfect at it right away. It's just not possible. So you're going to need to slowly dial this in closer and closer in all your relationships. And what you're essentially developing here is something that we refer to in Thai language as barami. This is a Thai word that means the one who people listen to. Barami, right? So if you speak this way in your community, you will establish barami in your family and your friends. People will be like, wow, talk to her. You know, she's really wise. She'll be able to help you, or talk to him, right? So in Thailand, each village has kind of elders that are considered to be very successful. And when I say successful, I mean they have very harmonious relationships, not necessarily financially successful, but usually if you have harmonious relationships, you're successful financially as well. But when I talk about success, I mean harmonious relationships. So if you're in a village and you need help, you know that, oh, I can go to this certain person or this couple and they will help me. And that's because they have barami. They're the ones who people listen to. So if you're interested in being helpful to other people, you're going to need to learn how to talk in ways that doesn't harm other people. Because when you harm others, they're not going to be interested in spending time with you. So this is the way that you can dial this in and bring it into your life more and more closely. In the book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, I have lots of details about speech. I go through each one of these aspects of right speech and explain to you what it is and how to practice it. But if for some reason you can't remember and you just blank on the 5 factors of well-spoken speech and you're in a situation where you need to communicate, think polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. That's the way you would like to speak. Polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. You're going to need to know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech because that's the natural law. But if you just blank for some reason and you just can't remember it, remember those. Polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. That's how you would like to speak in all situations. There should be no room in your life for a negative relationship or a negative conversation. You're just not interested in it. As soon as another person starts being angry and hostile and bitter, just walk away. You're not going to fix anything. When they're angered and they're frustrated, it's not the proper time to talk. You're not going to be able to get anything into their mind that's going to be helpful in that situation. To preserve the relationship and preserve your own mind, it's better to just walk away. And they might get even more angry when you walk away, but you're not causing that. It's their own mind that's causing that. So if you're interested in improving your life, improving your relationships, you're going to need to feel comfortable walking away in situations where people are angry or bitter or harsh or upset. And that's okay to walk away. Sitting there and continuing to argue and be upset, it's not solving the problem. So anytime you see somebody angered or bitter or harsh or upset, angry, frustrated, agitated, they're venting that towards you, just walk away. Because otherwise you're just teaching people, the more you yell at me, I'm just going to sit here and yell right back at you. And as you're yelling at them, they're just going to yell back at you louder and louder and louder, just going to erupt like fireworks. So it's better to preserve your mind to walk away. But you'll find it challenging to walk away because of the craving, because of the clinging. But if you can train your mind to let go, this is actually going to help you to get the relationship back to being harmonious. Okay, so you'll see a lot more details. This is just a little bit from the book, but you'll see a lot in the book. Then the fourth step is called right action. What right action is ensuring that you're not causing harm through your bodily actions, because anytime you cause harm through your bodily actions, this harm is going to come back to you. So here the Buddha is giving you 3 bodily actions. He's not giving you an exhaustive list because he can't tell you every single thing that would ever cause harm with your body. But he's giving you 3 very impactful ones, like killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Here, these are 3 very big, impactful things that you could cause harm and that are going to have certain consequences that you experience. So you're going to need to eliminate these. And when you study the 5 precepts using the original words of the Buddha, you'll get much more detailed language around these. Right here in the Eightfold Path, he just gives you general guidance about bodily actions that could cause harm. But in the 5 precepts, he gives you a lot more details. So notice here he says, refraining from sexual misconduct. Well, in the 5 precepts, he explains what sexual misconduct is. He talks about sex with minors, sex with people outside of your committed relationships, sex without consent, like rape and things like this. He talks about various things like this. So you're going to need to study that in order to understand what sexual misconduct is. But just understand that same gender relationships isn't sexual misconduct. Sometimes people think of it that way, but that's just because of their lack of wisdom. That 2 loving, loyal, consenting adults having sex with each other, they're not causing harm to anybody. But sometimes people in the world, they have craving. They want everybody who's a male to have sex with a female. They want every female to have sex with a male. And then they get angry if they don't see that. Right? But it's not possible for every man or every female to be interested in having sex with the opposite gender. It's just not possible. It's never happened throughout history because of the universal truth of impermanence. There's going to be some women who are interested in having sex with men, but there's going to be some women who aren't. And there's some men who will be interested in having sex with a woman, but there's some men who aren't. And this is normal, right? So sexual misconduct here is any kind of harmful sexual activity. And 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults having sex are not actually causing harm to anybody. So the Buddha doesn't give you a complete exhaustive list. Like notice he doesn't say, don't walk up to somebody and punch them in the face. He doesn't say that because you should be able to figure that out on your own. Right? That if you punch somebody in the face, they're either going to punch you back, they're going to pull a knife or a gun on you, their friends or family are going to come after you, the police are going to come after you, something's going to happen because you've caused harm through your bodily actions. If you drag your suitcase down the aisle of a plane and you run over people's feet and bump into their knees, you're causing harm with your bodily actions. And people are going to get hostile. People are going to get bitter. People are going to get angry with you, right? Because of the craving, desire, attachment in their mind. If you're causing harm, this harm is going to come back to you, right? So you're going to need to pay attention to your bodily actions, making sure that you're not causing harm. And understand that the Buddha has many other teachings. He even talks about substances that cause heedlessness, and he even talks about gambling as this being a harmful bodily action. Because if you're gambling, you're having a craving, you're wanting more money, you're wanting, and you can get addicted to that. And it's like a downward spiral. And then when you lose all your money, you can't afford to pay for food, clothing, shelter, medical care, things like this. So the Buddha's not teaching you rules and commandments. He's explaining to you the cravings, desires, attachments that your mind's going to have and how to make wise decisions around your conduct so that you don't cause harm to others or cause harm to yourself. If you're taking substances that cause heedlessness, that's like drugs and intoxicants. If you're taking those kinds of things, it's going to cause harm to your mind, and now you're going to make unwise decisions. You're more likely to kill, steal, have sexual misconduct, to lie, and all these other things. So there's a whole bunch of bodily actions that you could potentially do that would cause harm. And you're going to need to pay attention to your bodily actions that you're not causing harm. Then there's right livelihood. This is how you choose to sustain your life in the world and how you choose to make an income. Here, the Buddha in the Eightfold Path just says something very general. He says, "In what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood." What he's essentially saying is that you need to be able to practice in such a way that you're not causing harm in your livelihood. But then in other teachings, he explains to you how to not cause harm. These are teachings that plug into the Eightfold Path. But in the Eightfold Path, he just speaks very generally and very broadly, because there's these other more detailed teachings that are going to help you to understand how to practice a livelihood that doesn't cause harm. Because if you sustain your life off of causing harm to other beings, this harm is going to come back to you. So he gives you these 5 occupations: business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. And if you're doing those things, it's causing harm to other beings. And again, you can directly reflect on this to be able to see the truth. So I usually take the one, substances that cause heedlessness. This is a great one to look at, where you can directly reflect on this. If I was standing on the street corner selling cocaine into my community, I'm causing harm. And now this harm is going to come back to me. This is why I'm very likely to get beat up or robbed or murdered or arrested, or I might get addicted to these substances myself. This is the unwholesome results that are coming back to me as a result of making unwise decisions and causing harm in the community. People are having to rob and steal to bring me money. And now people are going to rob and steal from me, right? Because that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm choosing to do in the world. So you can see this for yourself by direct reflection. You can look at each individual one of these and see how it's causing harm and certain harms that are coming back to you as a result of this. And then remember, this is the natural law of karma. So it functions at a much higher level than governmental laws. So where I come from, this body was born in America. I could go legally work at a liquor store, for example. The government's not going to arrest me. Go get a job. You can work at a liquor store. But if you understand the natural law of karma, you might come to the conclusion that it's unwise to work at a liquor store. Because if I worked at a liquor store in America, I'm very likely to get robbed. There's people that come in there and fight and want to be injuring me. People get murdered in liquor stores, right? And at the very least, you're going to be dealing with intoxicated people that are your clientele. From time to time, there's going to be people who come in and that are intoxicated, and now you have to deal with this on a regular basis. So it might be unwise for you to take that particular job. And this is knowing the natural law of karma. You can then make a wise decision that's going to produce wholesome results for yourself. So these are the 5 livelihoods that the Buddha is explaining to you as causing harm, and therefore harm is going to come to you. But then he teaches you how to conduct your livelihood in ways that doesn't cause harm. He talks about scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, pursuing gain with gain. That, for example, if I was a politician, it's not one of those 5 livelihoods that I just mentioned. It's not weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, or poison. But if I was corrupt in my job as a politician, now when people find out 10 or 15 years into my career, they're not going to be interested to reelect me. And now I've based my life on this livelihood of being a politician, and now I can't get reelected. Or say I'm a police officer and I'm corrupt, right? And now I get fired from my job. It's going to be very hard to find another job because this is on my record. And now people are going to be able to see this, right? So if you're scheming in your job, even if it's a doctor or a nurse or something like this, or a lawyer, it's going to produce unwholesome results in your life. Or flattery. What flattery is like insincere comments just to get people to buy things from you. If you working as a salesperson and you're just like, oh, that jewelry looks so great on you, you look so beautiful. Da 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 da. You're just being insincere with your flattery just because you want this person to buy things from you. People will see through that, and you won't be able to build up a reputable business because you're being insincere in your flattery. Or hinting, this is like being unclear in your communication at work. So say we are on a work project and we're all working together and we're going to talk to the boss. If I was unclear in the way that I was talking to the boss and briefing them on my project, it's not going to go well for me in this livelihood. So you would like to be very clear and very direct in your communication when you're at work. And then belittling, this is degrading and diminishing people, like your competition or your business partners, your coworkers. If you're belittling people in your livelihood, this is going to hinder you from being able to have a successful livelihood. Like if you're talking to your customers and they're like, hey, what about this person over there? What about this business? How do you guys relate to them? And you start belittling them and degrading them, your customers aren't going to like that. And you're going to find it challenging to sustain your livelihood because you're belittling your competition. You don't need to diminish your competition. You can just say, oh, I'm not sure. I haven't been to their store before. But if you'd like to go, you're more than welcome. Right? It's up to them, right? No need to belittle your business partners, your colleagues, your coworkers, your competition. It's not going to help you in your livelihood. What pursuing gain with gain is, this is where you have a livelihood where you don't really care about the work. You don't care about the product or the service. You're just going there for a paycheck. That's all you care about is the money. You're just showing up each day for the money. And if you ever had a job like this, you probably felt quite miserable while you were working there, right? You kind of dragged yourself to work every day. You weren't really interested in being there. Initially, you might have really enjoyed the job because you're making all this money, but then it kind of wears off over time, right? And you kind of dragged yourself to work. You felt miserable, unmotivated, unenthusiastic, no ambition. So if you're interested in getting to a peaceful and joyful mind, in a peaceful and joyful life, you're going to need to have a livelihood that you feel motivated and encouraged and you feel ambition and enthusiasm to do. So you would like to pick a livelihood where you enjoy it so much it doesn't even feel like work anymore. That's what you would like to do. Like when I come here to the temple, like obviously people tell me like, David, wow, you work so hard to share those teachings. Well, yeah, there's a certain amount of effort involved in sharing the teachings, but I don't feel like I'm working. Right? You can take a job where you don't ever work a day in your life. Sure, you get a paycheck. Sure, you make money. Like I don't make money here in terms of a paycheck, but that's not the reason why someone might choose to do something. If you're choosing to do any kind of work, you would like to choose to do it because you thoroughly enjoy what you're doing, not because of the money. Right? Of course, there needs to be money in order to sustain your life, but you would like to choose a livelihood that you have ambition and enthusiasm and initiative to be able to do this long term so that it doesn't even feel like work anymore. That's where you know that you've gotten to a really pure livelihood, that it doesn't even feel like work anymore. You just thoroughly enjoy what you do. And that's going to be unique to you. You've got to figure out what that is. So this is livelihood and right livelihood. And there's more details here behind this. So volume 12, chapter 14 has a lot more details around your livelihood and how to purify that. But here, this is like the first level of purification. Now we're going to move into, we have the summary. So right speech is all about not causing harm through your verbal conduct. And remember, this can be thought of as right communication, that it's emails, text messages, chat, social media, all these things should be harmless because anytime you cause harm through your communication, this harm is going to come back to you. So you would like to ensure that all your communication is harmless. Right action is all about not causing harm through your bodily actions, that you're not using your body to cause harm. So you would like your bodily actions to be harmless. And then your livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life, that you're not interested in causing any harm through your livelihood. So now we're going to move into the mental discipline section. This is what's going to help you with your moral conduct. You wouldn't actually be able to practice the moral conduct without the mental discipline. That's why you find it hard to speak very kind and loving and gentle to people, because you don't have discipline of the mind. So now I'm going to teach you the mental discipline section of right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, because you need to practice all these things at one time. You're not actually mastering one before you move to the other. You're actually dialing all these in at the same time. So now I'll share with you the words of the Buddha on right effort, and then I'm going to teach it to you so you can understand it. He says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, A monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort. Okay, so he's talking about 4 things here. And I'm going to explain to you what these 4 things are and how to practice them. He's talking about preventing unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind. What he's saying here is if there's something that's unwholesome, that's not currently in your mind, apply the effort to prevent that from ever coming into the mind. And an example that I use here is like killing another human being. That's probably not in your mind. It's not even anywhere close to your mind. It's way, 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 way outside your mind. And what the Buddha is saying is prevent that from ever coming into the mind. And there's certain unwholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind. And you're going to need to apply the effort to prevent those from ever coming into the mind. The second one is abandon unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. So this is any unwholesome mental states that are currently in your mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate those out of your mind. Some examples might be if you have a craving for sexual contact outside of an existing relationship. Like if you're in an existing relationship and you have this craving to go outside and have sex with someone else, you know that's going to cause harm to you and to your relationship and to your partner. This is why we experience sexually transmitted diseases. This is why people get beat up or injured or murdered going outside of relationships. I'm not saying this is the way it should be. I'm saying this is the way that it is because of the natural law of karma, right? So if you know that, the Buddha is saying, okay, when you see that craving arising, eliminate it. Apply the effort to abandon that from your mind. Or say anger, or frustration, or irritation comes up in their mind. As that's coming up in your mind, that's an unwholesome mental state. Apply the effort to abandon that out of the mind. The third one here is produce unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. What this is any wholesome mental states that you learn about that aren't currently in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring those into your mind, because there's certain wholesome mental states that you're going to learn on this path that aren't currently in your mind, and you're going to need to apply the effort to bring those in. Some examples might be like generosity. This is a common one. Sometimes people find it very hard to share. What generosity is giving and sharing. And you might find that you're somewhat selfish and you have difficulty sharing. Well, if you know that about your mind, the generosity doesn't come easy for you, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into the mind. Because in order to train your mind and get to the enlightened mental state, you're going to need to practice generosity. An enlightened being isn't going to be selfish. They're going to practice generosity, right? So you might need to apply the effort to bring that into the mind. Or compassion is another example. Compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. This is the opposite of indifference. Whereas if you see somebody having some unfortunate situation, if you're just like, well, so what? I don't care. That's them. It's not me. I don't care. This is a lack of compassion, that the mind doesn't have compassion. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this compassion into your mind. And then the fourth one here is maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away. Work to increase their growth in the mind. This is any wholesome mental states that are currently in your mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to continue to develop them, encourage them, bring them to full growth and full perfection, full development in your mind. Some examples might be like loving kindness. Loving kindness is the opposite of anger. It's where you have active goodwill towards other beings. You probably have that to a certain degree in your mind, where you are interested in seeing other beings be well. But in some situations, you might be angry. You might be bitter and harsh towards others. But that's because you haven't brought it to full growth and full perfection. So you're going to need to maintain this in the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to bring this loving kindness up so that it can permeate in the mind. And you can be loving and kind with the people around you. Or another example might be sympathetic joy. This is the opposite of envy or jealousy. This is where you have joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. So maybe in some situations where somebody's like, hey, I got a raise at work. Oh, that's wonderful. Pleased to hear that. Right? And you might have joy for their success. But in some situations, someone's like, hey, I'm going to Japan next week. You might be jealous because you've never been to Japan and you've always wanted to go to Japan. Right? And now you feel this jealousy come into the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to arise this sympathetic joy. We're like, oh, that's really wonderful for you. That's outstanding. Congratulations, or whatever you say, right? It's up to you. But you're going to need to apply the effort to bring certain qualities up into the mind more and more and more, where you support them, encourage them, and don't allow them to fade. Now, these are just examples that I'm giving to help illustrate what right effort is. But what's going on in your mind is unique to you. Right? The things that are wholesome or things that are unwholesome, it's going to be unique to you. These are just examples to help you. So this is right effort. Applying the effort to prevent unwholesome mental states to come into the mind. Applying the effort to eliminate certain unwholesome mental states that are currently in the mind. Apply the effort to bring in wholesome mental states in the mind. And apply the effort to maintain and support the wholesome mental states that are already in your mind. This is right effort, 4 aspects to it. Now we'll talk about right mindfulness, because you wouldn't be able to practice right effort without right mindfulness. You need right mindfulness. So again, I'm going to read you what the Buddha taught during his life, and then I will teach it to you in a way that you can learn it, reflect on it, and then practice it and see the truth for yourself. In what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides, reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. So what he's talking about here is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is something that you're going to need to understand and practice in order to get to enlightenment. But when you're first starting out on the path, I advise you to just think about right mindfulness as awareness of mind, because you're going to need to get deeper into understanding mindfulness, but there's so many things that you're first learning at the beginning. Sometimes it's better to just think about right mindfulness as awareness of mind, and then later on develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So this word mindful is used in the world today quite a bit. It's become quite a buzzword in the world, but not everybody's using it in the same way that the Buddha used it. You can hear different people using it in different ways. It's important for you to understand what the Buddha taught if you're going to be able to get to enlightenment, which mindfulness means awareness of mind, that you have this awareness of what's going on in the mind. Sometimes people say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to the table? What they're really saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? That's what they're saying. But they're using this word mindful because they just don't understand what the word mindful is. The word mindful means awareness of mind, because in the unenlightened state, we tend to not be aware what's going on in the mind. I think about it like going through the forest, you're knocking down the trees, you're burning up the forest, you're self-centered, you're just making decisions that are in your own self-interest, and you could care less about what other people think or what other people do, and you're just plowing through the world. At least that's what I did in my early years, right? And then I look back and I saw all those trees were knocked down, and I smelled fire, and I'm like, who knocked down all those trees? Who lit the fire? Well, it was me. I'm the one who knocked down all the trees, and I'm the one who lit the fire because I didn't have mindfulness. I wasn't aware of what was going on in the mind. So slowly but surely, you're going to need to develop this mindfulness. And the breathing mindfulness meditation that I teach you is going to help you to be able to do that. But you're going to need to apply the effort in day-to-day life to practice this mindfulness where you're practicing awareness of mind. Okay? But then more specifically, it's the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is what you're going to ultimately need to learn. That you're going to need to have awareness of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of your mind, and the mental objects. When we talk about bodily sensations here, we're not just talking about like an itch or a scratch or something like that. We're talking about the bodily sensations associated with discontent feelings that are arising. So before you get angry, there's going to be some bodily sensations that are arising before the mind experiences the feeling of anger. You might notice tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, pain around the heart. You might notice tightening in the throat, heat in the face. You might notice pressure in the skull. These are all things that you might experience as a result of the craving, desire, attachment that's in the mind. This is the bodily sensations cluing you in that, hey, you're about to get angry. Right? The same thing happens with shyness. If you have that queasiness in the stomach, that's the bodily sensation cluing you in, like, hey, you're about to get shy. Right? Even the pleasant feelings, the happiness and excitement, there's going to be bodily sensations like tingling across the shoulders, up the back of your neck, over your skull. This is the pleasant feelings that the mind is about to create a conditioned feeling. This is an early warning system for you. With pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant, there's going to be a bodily sensation that occurs first. Then there's going to be the feeling. The mind's going to experience the feeling. Now the mind's angry. And then from the feeling, it's going to start affecting the condition of your mind. Have you ever been angry for like a couple of hours or a day or two? Or been agitated for like a week or two? Of course you have, right? Because you have craving, desire, attachment. Your mind's unenlightened. You were agitated for several days or for several weeks over a certain situation. And then what happens is it forms this mental object. What a mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind that the mind is holding on to particular pollution. All the 10 fetters that I talked about yesterday, if you were in class yesterday, those are all mental objects. They're deeply rooted containers in the mind. So for example, for something like anger, right? If you have a craving, desire, attachment in your mind, when we were little kids, we wanted our mom to get us chocolate or our dad to get us chocolate. We had this craving. Mommy, give me chocolate, give me chocolate. I want ice cream, give me chocolate, give me ice cream, right? We were so much craving for this particular thing. And if they got us what we wanted, we got pleasant feelings. And if we didn't get what we want, we got painful feelings. But before the painful feelings, we had some bodily sensations. We weren't aware of it when we were 3 years old or 6 years old. We weren't aware. But now you can start to be aware of those bodily sensations, because what the Buddha teaches you to do is apply right effort to cut it off and let it go as a bodily sensation. This is how you transform the mind, because the mind is having some contact. You're having some experience through your 6 sense bases, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind itself. You're having some contact. And now, based on your craving, you're going to get either a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, or neither painful nor pleasant. The unenlightened mind is getting ready to form this conditioned feeling. And there's these bodily sensations that are happening first. And that's your opportunity to say, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not going to let you form that conditioned feeling. So when you feel that sensation coming up through your chest and the tightening of your chest and the heat in your face, that's your opportunity to say, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not going to let you form that anger. Because if you miss it as a bodily sensation, it's going to then be this feeling. So you're trying to cut off and let go of this conditioned feeling that is not yet a feeling. You're cutting it off and letting it go as a bodily sensation. You're not suppressing your feelings. That's not what you're doing. Sometimes people think that's the case. but you're actually catching it before it even becomes a feeling. That your mind's like, oh, I'm about to get angry. 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 Because you notice those bodily sensations. And you say, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. You cut it off and let it go. And that's why you're training in meditation through breathing mindfulness meditation, that when your mind moves off the breath, you cut it off and let it go, and you bring your mind back to the breath, because this is training your mind to let go. So catching it as a bodily sensation and cutting it off and letting it go is preventing your mind from experiencing this unwholesome mental state, that you're not allowing it to come into the mind. Because once the anger comes into the mind as a feeling, you have a real problem to deal with now, because your mind's angry. So if you can catch it before it becomes a feeling, you've just saved yourself a whole lot of trouble, right? It's just like if you were in a boat. If you were going from Australia to Indonesia in a boat, you would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once it comes into the boat, you got a real problem to deal with. You got to get this water out of the boat. Same thing is true. Once the anger, the sadness, the stress, the anxiety, the guilt, the shame, the fear, the loneliness, the boredom comes into your mind, you've got a real problem to deal with. So if you're sitting there on the sofa and you're watching the news and you feel the frustration as a bodily sensation, it hasn't become a feeling yet. It's just a bodily sensation. If you can notice that, you can cut it off and let it go. You can turn off the TV. You can get up and walk away. You can go for a walk. You can go for a bike ride. You can say to the mind, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. You can cut it off and let it go. You can redirect the mind by applying right effort. But you need right mindfulness to be able to apply the right effort. You need to have awareness of those bodily sensations. And if you miss it as a bodily sensation, because you will, because sometimes you're not going to be able to catch it. Right now, your mind's not fully trained. As you get trained more and more, you'll be able to catch it every single time as a bodily sensation and cut it off and let it go. And eventually you'll get to the point where all the cravings are eliminated and there won't be any arising of any discontentedness. So if you can catch it as a bodily sensation, cut it off and let it go. And more those cravings will be eliminated and you won't experience this. But if it becomes a feeling, cut it off there. Redirect the mind, take it somewhere else. Because if you don't, it's going to affect the condition of the mind. You're going to be angry and irritated for a few hours, a few days, a couple of weeks, and that's no fun. Nobody enjoys that, right? So cut it off and let it go as a bodily sensation, but if you miss it there, it's going to form this feeling, which you can cut it off there. If you don't cut it off as a feeling, it's going to affect the condition of the mind, which you can cut it off there, where you notice like for 2 hours, 3 hours, you're kind of frustrated. You're like, what's going on here? Come on, stop doing this. Come on, let's go do something. Stop being irritated. Stop being angry, right? You got to snap yourself out of it. Redirect your mind somewhere else. Because as long as you keep allowing the mind to form this conditioned feeling, it's going to keep doing that. You need to rewire the mind and say, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. Because if you don't catch it as a condition of the mind, it's now going to feed this mental object of ill will, for example. When we were born, we didn't have ill will. We didn't go into the nursery hating other babies, right? We didn't do that. But we formed this ill will, this mental object, this container of mental object of ill will. It was formed over time, and we've been feeding it and feeding it and feeding it and feeding it. So now you're putting this blockade at the bodily sensations and no longer feeding this mental object. And then you're going to learn in this class how to use the loving kindness meditation to break up that mental object of ill will and get it out of the mind, like a jackhammer, like you're jackhammering the mental object of ill will and breaking it up and getting it out of the mind. Loving kindness meditation is going to help you do that, but all these other teachings are going to help you as well. So this is right mindfulness, awareness of mind in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, being aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. Okay? Then there's right concentration. This is the very last step. I'm not going to read this to you because what the Buddha is describing here is he's describing the results of having practiced all the Eightfold Path. This is what you're going to start experiencing. These are called the jhanas. What the jhanas are these are preliminary phases that your mind experiences on the way to the first stage of enlightenment, that your mind experiences these heightened qualities. And it's important for you at some point to learn these jhanas, because as you're putting together the Eightfold Path, you're going to start experiencing these. It's like the light bulb is flickering and you're starting to experience these periods of peace and joy at different times. But I'm not going to read this to you because what's more important at this stage of your development is understanding how to practice right concentration. But at some point, you're going to need to learn this. And that's what I teach in the next course, which is called Experiencing the Jhanas and the 4 Stages of Enlightenment. I'm going to be teaching this in June, I think it is, where it's a 5-day course on that. And I also teach it in some of the retreats and stuff like that as well. So you're going to need to learn the jhanas, but now is not necessarily the proper time. But just understand that there are heightened qualities of mind that you'll experience as you're putting together the Eightfold Path. And you can read the words of the Buddha to be able to see what he's talking about, but I actually teach it to you in other courses and other programs. But here I'm going to teach you how to actually practice the right concentration. There's 2 aspects to it of how to practice it. And he talks about this in other teachings. There's 1, developing meditation practice, and 2, practicing singleness of mind in daily life. Your meditation practice is helping you to develop right concentration, because when you're focused on the breath and your mind moves off the breath, you're cutting that off and letting it go and bringing the mind back to the breath. This is helping you to develop concentration and focus and clarity of mind. So you're going to need to develop a breathing mindfulness meditation practice where 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes or more, you're developing your practice where you're able to practice and train your mind on a consistent, ongoing basis. You're going to need to practice this level of frequency of 2 to 3 sessions for 30 minutes or more. But right now, you might not be able to do that, depending on where you are in your life. So gradually, over time, you would like to develop this. Sometimes it takes 6 months, a year, even 2 years to develop this, because you might be doing certain things in your life that maybe you need to start clearing out. Maybe you're spending a lot of time on social media or a lot of time on surfing YouTube, or maybe you're doing other unbeneficial things that you need to kind of slowly clear out of your life and give yourself more time to be doing meditation. It's very rare that somebody can start with 2 to 3 sessions for 30 minutes or more. So it's going to take you time to build this up. But as you do, this is where you'll see the improvement to the condition of your mind. Breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation is what you're going to need. And you're going to be doing both of those in this course to be able to learn how to do it. Then there's 2 other specialized meditations that are taught on an as-needed basis. Not everybody needs these 2. One of them is to eliminate sexual cravings. The other one is to realize non-self. Not everybody needs these 2 meditations, but they are 2 meditations that will help you to be able to train your mind if you need those. And they're in the book, Volume 1, Chapter 11. And then when students are talking to me privately and I see certain challenges that they have, I will recommend these if it applies to their specific situation. So you may or may not need those, but you'll definitely need breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. So that's the first aspect of right concentration, is developing a meditation practice. The second aspect is to practice singleness of mind in daily life. This is where you're doing just one thing at a time. Oftentimes we're taught to multitask, and our mind is bouncing around from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. You're not actually doing multiple things at one time. You're actually doing one thing for 5 seconds or 10 seconds, and then you're rapidly cycling to another thing for 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Then you're rapidly cycling to another thing. And your mind's bouncing around from thing to 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 thing. And then when you get home, you feel very stressed and you have anxiety, and it's hard for you to relax. This is because all day long, your mind's been go, 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 go. It's overactive. So what you would like to do is train your mind to do one thing at a time. If you're eating, you're eating. If you're talking on the phone, you're just talking on the phone. If you're driving, you're driving, right? Wherever you see your mind wandering, you cut it off and let it go and bring your mind back. So if you're in a business meeting and you see your mind's wandering, cut that off and bring it back. Or if you're having a conversation with somebody and you see your mind's wandering, cut that off and let it go. What you're not interested in doing is talking on the phone with your mom, watching TV, and eating a sandwich. This would be very unwise. Your mind's not actually doing all those things at one time. It's rapidly cycling from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. And this is where you have difficulties, because this conversation that could otherwise have been 10 or 15 minutes it's like 30 minutes or an hour long conversation. And then you were unkind, perhaps you were unfriendly. Maybe you agreed to certain things for your mom and you forgot about those later because you didn't really commit them to your memory. And now she's upset that you didn't do the things that you agreed to. You might have had certain challenges in this conversation. You weren't really watching the TV program and benefiting from that. And you weren't really benefiting from eating the sandwich either, because your stomach now hurts and you got to lay in bed for an hour or two and try to get over that pain, right? So the mind has this false belief that somehow I'm being more productive, that I'm talking to my mom, I'm watching TV and I'm eating, I'm doing all these things, but you're not doing them all at one time. You're rapidly cycling. So in terms of practicing something like right speech and having harmonious relationships, you wouldn't be able to do that if you're talking on the phone, watching TV and eating a sandwich. You're not going to be able to bring forth your wisdom to have right speech in that situation. So you'd like to do just one thing at a time. Have your conversation. Talk to mom, 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is, and then done. You don't have to follow up and say, Mom, I'm so sorry. I know I was angry with you. I know I was upset. That was wrong of me. I'm so sorry, right? You don't have to go back and clean that up because you talked for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you handled it really well, you had right speech, done, over, move to the next thing, right? You don't have to spend 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour just talking because you're not rapidly cycling. So what you're doing with breathing mindfulness meditation and practicing singleness of mind is, I think about this analogy of a piece of wood and a steel rod, that you're kind of grinding this steel rod back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And initially, this steel rod's going to bounce around a lot because there's no groove in the wood yet. But if you grind this steel rod back and forth enough times, eventually you're going to get a groove in the wood and it's going to be less likely to pop out. And when it does pop out, you're going to know it and you're going to pull it right back. But eventually you'll grind this steel rod back and forth enough times that you'll get a deep enough groove that it won't ever pop out again because it's deep enough. So if you go around meditating and you practice singleness of mind more and more and more in your daily life, you'll get to the point where your mind's focused and concentrated and it won't pop out. This is why you'll be able to be productive in your life, whether it's in business or whether it's in your relationships. You'll be able to be very successful because you're focused and you have clarity. But you're going to need to know that this mind is bouncing around. That's where your mindfulness comes in, that you're noticing in a business meeting, oh my goodness, there goes my mind. Let me cut that off and bring it back. Or like in a class like this, if you're thinking about lunch and you're like, what am I going to have for lunch? I just can't wait to get to lunch. And you notice that. It's like, hold on a second. No, I need to focus on what the teacher's saying. Let me cut that off and bring the mind back. Right? So you get more and more used to just practicing singleness of mind. And eventually the mind will just stay there all the time. It won't pop out. But you'll need to train your mind to do that, like grinding the steel rod back and forth. Okay? So this is right concentration. So now, to just summarize the mental discipline, there's right effort, which is taking initiative to eliminate certain unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities. Then there's right mindfulness, which is awareness of mind, but more specifically, the four foundations of mindfulness: the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. This is right mindfulness. Then there's right concentration, which is practicing meditation and developing singleness of mind until you actually start experiencing the jhanas. You'll start noticing the jhanas. And this is where your mind's starting to experience heightened qualities. You'll still be practicing meditation. You'll still be practicing singleness of mind, but you're going to start noticing kind of the light bulb flickering. These are like the qualities of enlightenment starting to shine through. Sometimes when people get to the jhanas, they think they're actually enlightened, but they're not, because the qualities of the jhanas are so improved from where you were previously when you were off the path to enlightenment, that there's some people today that are in the jhanas that actually think they're enlightened. This is why some people will tell you that enlightened beings still get angry or still get frustrated, because they think that they're enlightened and they still experience anger. And they're saying, yeah, if you're enlightened, you'll still get frustrated and agitated. This isn't true. I can assure you that enlightened beings don't even have the slightest ickiness in their mind. They don't even have a bad mood, that they're always in a good mood. There's no anger or sadness or frustration at all, because you've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing that. So in these jhanas, you'll still experience anger and frustration. It'll be reduced from what it was before, but there's still anger and sadness and frustration there in the jhanas. But there's these heightened qualities that you experience that are like night and day compared to what you were experiencing when you were off the path to enlightenment. And the way that you accomplish that is by practicing meditation and practicing singleness of mind. And all those other factors too. You wouldn't be able to get to the jhanas by practicing wrong speech, right? You're going to need to practice right speech in order to get to the jhanas. You need to practice right action and all these other things too. So all of this is working together. Okay, so this is the Eightfold Path, the complete perfect plan of exactly how to train your mind. And you learn this and you dial it in closer and closer. And not only is this going to help you train your mind, but it's going to help you to develop harmonious relationships, because you wouldn't be able to develop harmonious relationships if you didn't understand how to speak to people with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. You're going to need to know how to do that. And that's what's going to produce harmonious relationships. One of the things that's going to produce harmonious relationships for you. So you could do all the meditation in the world for 23, 24 hours a day. But if you went outside and you were bitter and harsh and hostile with people, your mind's not going to get to enlightenment. You're going to have bitterness and harshness and hostility coming back to you. So all of these factors are working together to improve and enhance the quality of your mind. So any questions here, either at the temple or anybody online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like.
Hello. I have a question about in right livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
What is like business in poisons?
This is like selling substances that cause the death of other beings. So like if you were selling like rat poison, or you're selling pesticides, things like this that kill other beings. So poisons or any kind of substances that are causing the death of another being. So like if I was an exterminator, for example, I'm providing a service, I'm providing a product of poison that is going to kill these other beings. And now I'm sustaining my life off of killing other beings and providing something that kills other beings. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome.
Also, I have another question. Mm-hmm. I don't understand what's the difference between like let the feelings go and repressing the feelings.
Sure. So once your mind has a feeling, if you press it down and you smother it and you bury it, that's what we call suppressing feelings. But cutting it off and letting it go is to like detangle the mind, to let it go, to cut it off. So for example, like say you've broke up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, and now you're angry and you're frustrated. You can let that go, meaning, you know what, so be it. If they would like to be with another person, so be it. That's their choice. I'm not going to hold on to this. I'm not going to hold on to this emotion. I'm just going to let it go. Let it go out of the mind. So you're not suppressing it and burying it and holding on to it. You're letting it go open-handedly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Junko? She's got a mic too, Junko. She's got one there.
About to practice singleness. So actually for me, I listen to podcasts while walking. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's kind of being distracted, so maybe so might have a chance to encounter dangerous. So and then also while transport reading, so for example in the car or in the train, so people often listen to the music or maybe listen to something. So I wonder, what do you say about the behavior of the people?
Whatever the people choose to do is up to them, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's making their own personal choice. For me, if I'm driving, I just drive. I don't listen to music anymore. In the past, I used to, right? And my mind would be distracted, and I've gotten in a car accident before from doing that, right? That's the unwholesome results that I'm experiencing. Or like if somebody's walking down the street talking on the phone and they walk out in front of a car, now they're dead,
I see.
right? This is because of the karma. This is the lack of wisdom. You're not practicing singleness of mind. It's not punishments. It's not rewards. It's just a result of your decisions that you were unknowing of true reality. And now, because of that unwise decision, you're experiencing this unwholesome result. So if you get used to training your mind to do just one thing at a time, this is what will help you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So if you're eating and you're watching YouTube at the same time or searching social media, this is the mind flipping back and forth, back and forth. You have a craving for stimulation. You're not comfortable to just eat. You want the stimulation, for example, and you'll not eliminate your boredom and your loneliness by watching YouTube while you're eating. This is oftentimes things that I see people doing in restaurants. Of course, that's their decision. What they choose to do is up to them. But I know they have a craving, desire, attachment. And if they didn't watch YouTube, they would feel bored while they were eating. But they're not going to eliminate the boredom through watching YouTube. Temporarily, they're watching YouTube and they feel okay in that moment. But as soon as you get rid of the YouTube, because YouTube is not permanent, sometimes they're going to be eating when they don't have YouTube, they're going to be bored and they're going to be lonely. So if you can train your mind to do just one thing at a time and get to peacefulness, then you'll be able to be peaceful all the time. So like when you're meditating, in addition to getting to the point where you're experiencing concentration and focus, if you can get your mind to be peaceful and joyful where you're just focusing on the breath and that's it, my goodness, when you're outside walking down the street, you can be peaceful and joyful. So you might be doing things like walking down the street, listening to the podcast, right? And for some people, this is their only option at this point in time to be able to bring the teachings in. Like I have people who study with me who's like a single mom and they might have 3 children. And the only way for them to learn any of these teachings that I share is that while they're driving down the road is to have the podcast playing, right? That's their only option and they wouldn't have any other way. So, okay, that's where they're at in their life right now. And that's what they're doing. But over time, as they clear up more and more out of their life, you would like to get to the point where you're only ever doing one thing at a time. So if you're listening to the podcast, just sit and listen to the podcast and that'll help you to get more concentration and more information and more wisdom to learn. But right now, if that's what you need to do is take a walk and listen to the podcast, then that's where you're at with your practice. But just dial that in over time, closer and closer, where you can do just one thing at a time.
Okay. So as much as possible, so just should or try to choose singleness. Will be kind of better choice.
Yes, that's what's going to produce the best results. Like if you're writing an email and you're watching a YouTube video, like you have a YouTube video playing in the background, your mind's going to be flipping back and forth. And it's going to be overactive and you're not going to be able to be focused and bring forth your wisdom. So just pause the YouTube video and write your email. Sometimes this happens to me, like I'll be watching a YouTube video and a student will pop a message into, Facebook. So I just pause the YouTube video. I go over to Facebook, look at the message, decide if I'm going to reply now or not. And if I'm going to reply, I'll just reply. And then I'll go back to the YouTube video and press play. Or sometimes I just read it and I would like to think about it for a little bit before I reply. So I'll just go back to the YouTube video. But I'm not going to leave the YouTube video playing while I'm reading the message because the mind's having to flip back and forth. And this is causing the overactivity in the mind. So like when people talk about they have ADHD and things like this, all they're saying is they lack concentration, right? That they don't understand that nowadays people think that this is a medical issue and this is like a disorder. It's actually not. It's just that the mind hasn't been trained to be focused and have concentration and clarity. And nowadays we have so many devices in the world that it's really easy for people's minds to bounce around like that. So that's why we see this huge increase of people who are lacking concentration because we have all this stimulus in the world where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they didn't have these things, right? But they were still in a conversation and their mind would wander, right? So the Buddha was teaching you how to get to that focus and concentration. But now we have so many devices and we have so many things going on in the world that it's really easy for someone to be distracted. So if you keep allowing your mind to be distracted and you never train it to have singleness of mind, then you won't actually be able to experience concentration.
Yeah. Yes. Just so listening to your lecture, and then it's reminded me. So while I was a child, so I went to I visit my grandpa house, and then so it's kind of a wrong hour. So I sit in a wrong hour in the train, but I just watching the scenery. I remember the scenery beautiful. But nowadays, maybe when I get on the train, maybe I started to listen something, or maybe might be as a kind of a habit. Might be it might get I might got it might get habit. So just say so. This this teaching reminded me. So maybe it's those people who read it in a past time, so they didn't listen to while they are moving.
Yeah.
But
well, if you're on a train and you're just sitting there, you're not driving the train, listening to something on your headphones is okay, right? Like when I travel on an airplane, I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to listen to some music, perhaps.
Yeah.
I might edit a podcast. I might read a book. I might, do things like that because I'm not driving the airplane. Right. It's when you're trying to drive the airplane and write an email. This is where the problem comes in. Right. So you would like to do just one thing at a time.
Okay.
So if you're sitting on the train and you're listening to music, that's fine. But understand that's impermanent. That sometimes you would like to take the train and not listen to anything. This is actually helpful for you. Whereas if every single time you go on the train, you listen to music, your mind gets attached to it. So you would like to introduce some impermanence and train the mind like, hey, sometimes you're going to get this music and sometimes you're not. And that's okay. And you can train your mind to be peaceful and joyful, whether you have the music or whether you don't have the music.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. I'm not seeing any questions here online. So what I'm going to do then is just in for going to lunch here is it's now basically 12:15. Are you guys okay to come back at 1:30 for lunch? Take an hour and 15 minutes? Okay, so I'll see you guys at 1:30. For those of you guys online, that's an hour and 15 minutes from whatever time it is right now. We're going to start back up. I'm going to share with you the 3 poisons, the 3 unwholesome roots. I'm going to explain to you what craving, anger, and ignorance is, because in the Four Noble Truths, you understand craving, desire, attachment. But now I'm going to broaden your understanding, and I'm going to deepen your understanding of what's really going on in the unenlightened mind and why you keep experiencing these feelings over and over and over again. So enjoy your lunch, and I'll see you at 1:30. Okay? Thank you so much.